to a cross, straight across the board.
A stunt by Washington State over the middle. It's Franklin. Troy Franklin will take it to the house. Touchdown, Ducks. 50 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Health issues as Williams rolls out, makes one man miss, and Caleb Williams high steps his way into the end zone.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
If you're Tulane. Pratt going to take out his do-it-yourself kit and picks up the first down.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Word, trying to get it done on his own, needs some help. Needs a lot of help. There's Watson.
Oh, my God.
Now, does he have room? Nakia, he's got it.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
That's Cobbs in motion. It's Tagovailoa circling out of the pocket again and sprinting down the sideline. He's got Monk in front of him and a touchdown.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
We want to have the focus on football today. We have an incredibly good football story to tell, and we want that to be the focus today.
Now here's David Smoak and Paul Catalina.
All right, here we go on this Tuesday afternoon, where today the Pac-12 was given details of what their media deal is or will be or should look like. And it depends on who you ask on whether it was enough to keep people happy. It doesn't seem as if there's any deal or any agreement on that today, but there might be agreement on whether it was enough. We're going to hear in a moment from former Utah and also NFL quarterback Scott Mitchell, does radio in Salt Lake City. He will join us today in about 5 minutes or so. Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. So the Pac-12 met George Kliavkoff, the commissioner, in this conference, giving information to the presidents of the Pac-12. Here are some, I guess you could say, response and feedback from reporters. One, Jason Scheer, who will join us again today in about an hour. It has been confirmed by Pete Thamel. Apple was the deal presented today, and there's escalators based on subscriptions. So in other words, kind of like a bonus pool based on subscriptions. Then Brett McMurphy had this today earlier, and this is like in the last hour, the biggest blowback on the Pac-12's possible primary Apple media rights deal with incentive bonuses. It's very challenging for schools to accurately budget annual revenue. This is, of course, what he was told at the Action HQ Network. It is also, based on some of the reading I've had in the last hour, Pac-12's been through this incentive-laden thing before when Larry Scott was the Pac-12 commissioner. Based on the Pac-12 network, it did not work out so well.
No, as a longtime stand-up comedian, so I'll tell you the one kind of show I'll never do is what's called a bringer show, where you only pay me if I bring 10 people to the show. My job is not to fill your club. My job is to, or promote your club. My job is to go on stage and do that. So while I might bring some friends, it's not my job to make sure that I have 10 of them so that I can make $25. Just like the Pac-12 and any other conference wouldn't say it's not necessarily our job to promote Apple TV. It's Apple TV's job to promote us so that your subscriptions go up. So also when you're trying to figure out, well, how many subscriptions can we get? Well, if you don't get any, then that's a tough thing for...
Which then you don't know if you're going to get 1 million of them or 5 million of them or 200,000 of them.
Also...
Which means it's not really money because that's basically a bonus structure, not here's the ground level of where we start.
Ask the actors and writers who are on strike right now about how forthcoming the streamers are with their actual viewership numbers and subscriber numbers. They're not very transparent. Now, maybe the Pac-12 has more power brokers than, say, the writers union of guys who sit in a room and write jokes for a sitcom for a living, but even still, that's a precarious position to be in. And if you have options, I'm not sure if you would accept that deal, knowing that you could go somewhere else and not have to promote the streaming service you're on. So those things to me and those escalators would make me very nervous if I'm anybody in the conference. Now, the ones with less options, I mean, Oregon State might say, like, look, we'll give you a free Apple TV Plus subscription with your admission to the school. I don't know, just so we can get people hooked on it and watching. I don't know, but there are so many different layers to this. And once again, if this is the first deal they've seen, this is the first one. I cannot stress that enough. This is the first time that the presidents of these 9 schools have seen numbers on a deal.
Well, here's another thing. You know what a commission structure is? Do you know what a bonus structure is? Do you know what that is? Extra. That means merit-based.
Yeah.
You have a salary or however you're paid based on who you are, whether it's hourly, whether you're a part of a union or you're contract labor like we are, you have what you get paid. But a commission and or bonus structure is something you've earned above and beyond whatever your value is. Not in every business, in most professions. So here's a note. This is from somebody that we've been in communication with quite a bit, but this is from somebody who is a part of an administration in the Big 12. Sent this to me. I asked the question, how legitimate is the interest or heat when it comes to Arizona? The response was, there's the flame, hot, but may not be immediate, because I think a lot of people think even something could happen today or tomorrow, as in today or even this week. Jason Scheer has stressed this, as others. These are big decisions with lots of moving pieces for an institution. I've been through it several times from the inside. By the way, speaking of that, from one point of view, Bob Thompson today will join us at 5. Jason Scheer, with anything new he's learned in the next hour, will join us today at 4 o'clock Central Time. Also, Arizona maybe tomorrow. And then is there a chance that Utah and Arizona State are trying to go, wait a minute, there is a game here. There's a chair open, maybe 3, like we discussed quite a bit yesterday. Do we want to sit in one of those chairs? Even if maybe they don't, do they need to think about it even more seriously? Scott Mitchell, former Utah, go ahead and finish up on that thought, Paul. And then Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, who's in radio at Salt Lake City, former NFL quarterback, will join us.
Yeah, there are some hurdles for the conference to climb. Brett McMurphy reported. We had him on the show last week. He explained it to us. I actually talked to our friend Jim Williams today to kind of help me understand what why Brett Yormark can't just call up and be like, hey, how does Fox feel about 16? ESPN has agreed to pay a full share up to 16 teams. Fox has agreed to pay a full share up to 14 teams. So Brett Yormark would have to go back to the table, and that means negotiating, and some things would probably have to be given, because Fox, you're talking about, yes, old Uncle Rupee has the money, Rupert's got the money, but you're talking about paying. So let's say I'm rounding it off to $32 million a year because I don't want to do decimal points. So $64 million a year for the 2 new schools for 6 or 7 years. So you're talking about, almost $400 million? A
lot of money.
$400 million more dollars you're going to have to pay out. And, there's a lot of things that you have to have available for. So that's just for 2 more schools for the Big 12. Now, I think Brett Yormark could probably get that over the finish line, and I'm sure he's had this contingency plan in the holster, but that doesn't mean that Fox is just going to go, yeah, do whatever you want.
Yeah, no, it's their money, not the Big 12's, although Big 12 is trying to make sure that they continue to add to what they have, which right now is 14, minus Texas and Oklahoma. This is simple math, 12, plus Colorado, 13. And now the question, will it be 14 or will it be 16? It would be stunning if it's an odd number, 13 or 15 at this time next year. Also today, there's a quote that Jason Scheer, Arizona kind of had like their media day for football with Jed Fish, their coach, making a couple of comments, including one on realignment. There's a couple of notes about UCF and recruiting. The ACC media poll is out. We'll have that for you. And then a couple of comments that have been sent to me from Colorado fans in the last 6 months. Just a couple of receipts about them being involved in the Big 12. I know that story was at the end of last week. And there's a neat story. Baylor men's basketball had a reunion today, kind of like some former players come back into town. They work out together. Some are still currently a part of the NBA, some are not. And so we'll have that for you at some point today. Scott Mitchell, Josh Newman, who writes for KSL.com in Salt Lake City, Jason Scheer, Bob Thompson. Those are the guests, a lot of them, when we talk to about college football here on 365 Sports. Emery Winter and Jack McKenzie, Garrett Ross are in the studio. Paul Catalina will join me here in just a second. Here's a couple of notes from those who are very much tied in to various people when it comes to the Pac-12 as far as knowing those who are decision makers. So if you are the Big 12 and you know what may be happening here in the next 24 hours or 72 hours or the next 3 or 4 days, how do you then, even if Washington and Oregon are not interested, can you make them interested? There are ways probably to do that, whether it comes to stories, whether it comes to marketing, whether it comes to a narrative, and that remains to be seen whether or not. And it even includes Utah. That's why I'm excited we get Scott Mitchell here in a moment to come on the show to discuss the perspective, because it does appear that if you were to say which teams in the Pac-12 are not interested in moving, all of them wanted to keep the Pac-12. All of them wanted to try to keep it together to a point where some of them said it multiple times. We even saw where Oregon State last week said, we are completely committed to the Pac-12. And with all due respect, they have a heck of a football team. That really is the only decision they have right now, unfortunately. And by the way, there's teams in the Big 12 that have been there too. Teams in the Big 12 have been there too when it comes to whether it's Baylor or Iowa State or Tech or TCU or whoever who have been waiting for that call and also have been on an island when other teams have left and the Big 12 could have gone to the Pac-12 or with Texas OU leaving. What does that mean? Or even back when Missouri, when Nebraska, Colorado left the conference too. So how do you do this? Don't be fooled. Just think that Arizona State and Arizona have to do something together. Don't be fooled that Utah wants to make sure that Arizona and Arizona State are happy before they do anything. Everybody is in this right now today and maybe for the last few days for themselves. No matter what you hear. If one leaves, that doesn't mean 3 leave. If 3 leave, that doesn't mean 5 leave. Everybody is in this right now for themselves. They have to take care of themselves. And Colorado had the balls to finally say, we are going to take care of it ourselves, no matter if anyone else was going to go with them or might join them at any time.
Yeah, Garrett's going to effort Scott Mitchell here. I've called him a couple times. But I think I need to do this every time that we talk about 2 schools leaving together in a conference. So here's how it used to work when the Big 12 formed. The governor of Texas, Ann Richards, and the lieutenant governor, Bob Bullock, used every gun in their political holster to make sure that A&M and Texas did not split apart, because that was their initial desire, was that Texas wanted to go to the PAC and A&M wanted to go to the SEC, and they were ready in 1994 to say, we're done with each other. And that's when that kind of all started. But they also wanted to ensure a future for Ann Richards' alma mater Baylor and Bob Bullock's Texas Tech that were going to be within a power conference. So they used those tools at their disposal to make sure that those 4 schools stayed together in the Big 12. But when A&M decided to leave for the SEC the next time, the governor in charge was Rick Perry, a former Yale leader. So he said, well, I don't care about any of those other schools. I'm going to do what I can do, and they're going to go out the door. So that political thing went away. You saw it with UCLA and USC. You've seen it all over the place. None of these schools are tied together. Even though Arizona and ASU share a board, they're not married. They don't have to do what the other does. I'm sure that it would be nice for both of them in a way of thinking to both go to the same place, but if one of them thinks that this is better than the other one, then the other one will do what they want to do.
I wanted to make sure. Bob Bullock was definitely involved. And Richards gets way too much credit, Paul, I think, for any of the back in the day with the Big 12 being formed. David Sibley, an attorney here locally, was very much involved. And in fact, at some point, I'm going to sit down with him and review and go back in the past with the memories of exactly the timeline of how everything happened. An attorney here in Waco who got very much politically involved because he was working quite a bit out of Austin. Let's do this, Garrett. Let's break here. There's a lot to get to, but we want to want to get Scott Mitchell on the show. And I want to get him on the show and straight into another guest with Josh Newman. Before we do that, just you throw up a couple of the tweets, Garrett. I sent you a whole bunch of them when it comes to you just throw up the ones you have in order. This is from Jason Scheer. Arizona football coach Jed Frisch shutting down the idea that it would be Arizona that kills the Pac-12. It's Arizona reacting to other schools and making the decision that's best for Arizona. That's my point a minute ago. Paul came back on the set. Everybody has to take care of themselves.
Make no mistake. No individual school in the Pac-12 is killing the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is doing that to itself. Bottom line. That's who's doing that. So if it's Colorado's fault, it's Arizona's fault, it's USC's, it's UCLA's. No, the Pac-12 as a group did this to itself.
Yep. Self-inflicted wounds.
Yes. And you know what? The other thing we've seen is, did A&M and Nebraska, Missouri, and Colorado kill the Big 12?
No, they tried. It could have.
Did Texas and Oklahoma?
Yep. No.
No. So if you don't want to be killed, you don't have to be.
That's exactly right. Here's Jason Scheer from earlier. I've heard that there were and will be 3 different types of deals presented at the Pac-12 meeting. Some have to do with incentives and a lower base or a higher base and less incentives. Not viewed as favorable. Again, you have your base, whatever that is, 18, 22, 24, 20, whatever the base is, that's what you're going to get. And then tied to incentives based on subscriptions. And that means it's not there. It could be, and it might actually be a huge revenue stream. But of course, that's gambling. We'll get into Scott Mitchell. Also, I just heard from Matt McChesney, the former Colorado defensive lineman who wants to join us here in about 30 minutes. Let's do this, Garrett. Let's take a break. No live, straight to a break. I'll get a hold of Scott Mitchell, then Josh Newman, then Matt McChesney, and much more. This is 365 Sports. Jason Scheer, Bob Thompson, 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock today.
The Make This the Summer sales event is going on now at Allen Samuels. Get amazing deals on new Ram trucks, cheap SUVs, Chrysler minivans, or a sporty Dodge. Shop online or visit us today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends. The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
All right, we're back on 365 Sports in studio. David Smoak with Paul Catalina, joined by former Utah and NFL quarterback Scott Mitchell on the radio in Salt Lake City, and he joins us on 365 Sports. Scott, thank you very much for your time. It's pretty obvious that Utah would like to see the Pac-12 remain as one, and I think everybody wanted that. Do you see any crack at all in the armor based on what's going on and even today's news about what might be the base of the TV media deal or linear and or streaming deal?
Yeah, I think if any team in the Pac-12 wants the Pac-12 to stay, it's Utah. I mean, Utah's been to 4 of the last 5 Pac-12 championship games. They've won the last 2 championships. They've been to 2 Rose Bowls. I mean, they've really flourished in the conference. And Coach Whittingham is really hitting his stride, I think, as a coach. He's got every year he just gets a better recruiting class over and over. And so they're the poster child for, joining a conference and having success. And yeah, I really get a feeling that they want the conference to stay together. But I really wonder, and I think that every team has to kind of have something in their back pocket. They can't be foolish enough to say, oh, we're going to be, we're all going to be in solidarity here, and we're going to stay together on this, and knowing that I'm sure they're having conversations on back channels that they probably don't want publicly, but they've got to have an exit strategy, or they're stupid. I mean, college football is changing, and you just don't want to be a team stuck with nowhere to go when it really shifts in a line.
Scott, is there any weight behind that Utah and BYU just would not want to be in the same conference together? Because obviously it's a bitter rivalry, but they just, this is, years and years of universities running in the same state where they just have different goals and don't want to deal with each other in that respect.
It's weird because it does get kind of petty like that here, and someone got their feelings hurt, so they don't want the other program to be a part of their new deal, and they really want to crush the other school. Like I guarantee you, all the BYU faithful are relishing the angst in the Pac-12 right now, and they're loving the fact that Utah might not be in a conference, or the conference may have a media rights deal that's far inferior to what happened in the Big 12. And Utah, on the flip side, most of the folks there are like, it's so nice that BYU's independent, irrelevant, doesn't have a conference. I mean, that there's a real feeling between these two schools. They want to see them suffer, and to me, that's beautiful. That's a rivalry. That's what you want to have. And I grew up with this rivalry. I played in this rivalry. I've actually been a fan of both sides of this rivalry. I grew up a BYU fan, so and I played at Utah, so I get it and I understand it. And it is deep and passionate and hateful, and that's what you want in a rivalry. I can't, imagine having two teams in the same conference. And I'm so much for BYU and Utah being in the same conference. You're playing each other late in the year because you always play the rivalry games late in the year, and it's for something. It's for a chance to win the Big 12 or go to the Big 12 championship or whatever, and a college football playoff is on the line. If you're a football fan, who would not want that? Who would not want the excitement of that game, to be in that game, to have it between two in-state rivals? People in Utah, in general, in the state of Utah, are big sports fans, and they're big football fans. And these programs have really put themselves in a position to be Power 5 schools, and a lot of schools recruit Utah. I mean, you get Oregon, you get really almost every conference. I believe every conference recruits in the state of Utah. So football is healthy and it's alive here in the state. And Utah, I think Utah is going to have its best team it's had since being in the Pac-12 this year. They're deep at every position, and so the state of football is good, and you want to maximize that ability. So I would love to see Utah and BYU in the same conference.
It is interesting to me, Scott, that in 2021, Baylor and Brigham Young renewed what was a short kind of a stint where they'd played each other. And then that same year, Brigham Young, among others, invited to the Big 12. This year, it's Colorado TCU, and we now know what's happening with Colorado. And Utah plays Baylor, as we know, which will be a hell of a test for both, but especially Baylor off of 6 and 7. And it almost like it all seems to maybe be weird, the way all these renewals or starting of rivalries might be connected to realignment too.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about, well, they tried to create a rivalry between Utah and Colorado in the Pac-12. And quite frankly, both schools were just too nice to each other. There was no bad blood. I don't even think there was any bad blood. In fact, Utah probably donated blood to Colorado. Who knows? But it was not a bad rivalry at all. And we used to joke. We called it the Rocky Mountain Oyster Cup. That they're playing for, and it just never panned out. But TCU is interesting, and it's interesting because that was a Mountain West rival for both BYU and Utah, and TCU's actually made some stipulations about BYU fans coming to games, and they know how well BYU travels, and so that's a great rivalry that I think will just naturally kind of fit for BYU. And I think the Baylor thing, at least for BYU, is Jeff Grimes was a coach here at BYU for a few years, and has had great success down there at Baylor. And so he took some of his assistants with him when he went there. So I think that kind of, creates a little bit of a rivalry. Utah playing Baylor, early on, it's the week after they play Florida. So they're playing 2 Power 5 schools in their non-conference. So yeah, it's going to be a tough test. Here's what I like about the Big 12, and this is what I hate about the Pac-12. The Big 12, the schools care about football. I don't care what market. I don't care how good the school is. Predominantly, almost all of the schools in the conference are passionate about football. And you have to be if you're going to survive, because media is driving college football, and college football is king. It's what drives everything in every university's athletic budget. And in the Pac-12, most of the schools are indifferent. They're indifferent to football. They're indifferent to sports in general. You go to places like Stanford, that's an amazing campus, amazing tradition, and they're actually doing well. And you'll have 22,000 people show up in a beautiful stadium in the Bay Area that is full of people, and full of people who are passionate about sports, but they're not passionate about Pac-12 football. And it's a little demoralizing because you got Utah that sells out every game for, here back to whenever. And you get schools like Oregon and Washington who really care, but a lot of the schools just kind of feel indifferent to football and really kind of owning it and getting excited about it. And I love that about the Big Ten.
Scott, if you asked fans 48 hours ago how they felt about the Big 12 and then compared to today, do you think those attitudes are changing with the direction the Pac-12 leadership seems to be, I wouldn't even say going, I mean veering off the cliff in?
Well, what the Big 12 has done, because I remember Oklahoma, Texas leaving the Big 12, and everyone's like, the Big 12's done. Like, who can poach the remaining teams in the Big 12? And which ones would you want? And Brett Yormark came in and instead of kind of reacting to everyone, he got aggressive and he got proactive. And he came up with some great ideas and about thinking outside of the box. And he hand selected some schools, I think, that were pretty strategic partnerships and some savvy picks. BYU's a brand, and they travel well. And they're a program that's committed to football. At UCF, I lived in Orlando for about 14 years, so I watched kind of the rising out of nowhere, the University of Central Florida, and then Houston's in Texas, and Cincinnati's had some success. And so Brett Yormark, the Big 12, they got reactive, they got aggressive, They were like, we're in business, and we're going to go to Mexico, and we're going to go to Rucker Park, and we're going to have a unique pro day, combine type of, and the Pac-12 kind of sat on its hands and said, we're kind of the Pac-12, and you should just be honored that, you're in our presence. And there was no vision, there's no passion, there's no direction with what's going on in the Pac-12. they're just not reading the room right, and they're just being reactive to everything. And I'm massively concerned with the ultimate survival of the Pac-12.
Do you think it remains intact for another year, or do you feel like that somehow they'll pull this thing out? Because they had the meeting, as you know, Scott, today, and it appears as if a lot of it is streaming with the possibility, but we've heard this for months, linear. And if it works, good, that's great. I don't want to see conferences die, but this one's kind of had self-inflicted wounds. Do you feel like there's enough of a crack, as I mentioned earlier, that if in fact the number is not healthy, or it's not just incentive-laden, or it is too incentive-laden, that Utah might be more interested in moving on?
Yeah, if it gets kind of hairy about, what do you mean by incentive, or what do you mean by subscriptions, or what do you mean, it's one of those things, where they try to, they give you some kind of deal, and then they give you all these like hurdles you have to jump over, and most people go, well, they give up after a while because they just can't jump over all the hurdles. And if it feels kind of like that, where it's, that's almost an impossible task for us to reach those incentives, and or maybe it's clean and clear, and maybe people go, hey, there's potential here to even make more than what we anticipated. And if it's easy, I think they'll stick with, but if it just gets confusing, and it sounds a little confusing, I think understanding, all of the nuances of it and what that really means, and our school is going to have the patience to kind of sort through that stuff. But if the number's close, why would you want to leave the conference if the number's close? I just don't think you would. And I don't think, because of how the college football landscape's changing in the playoffs. If you're a known Power 5 conference, and with at least a certain number of members, you qualify as one of those conferences, which I think the Pac-12 would. Why not be in a conference where you have a legitimate shot at going to the college football playoffs? And maybe you're a school like Oregon or Utah, and maybe the Pac-12 says we'll give like an unequal share of revenue from the playoffs and from bowl appearances, which is something the Pac-12 is entertaining and possibly will do. Maybe you say, we stay in the conference, we make extra money because we know we're going to go to the playoffs, we know we're going to get big bowl invites, and maybe that makes up the difference than it normally would, and it's enough to keep us around, and then let's see what happens with the next iteration of media rights deals and conference realignment. Scott, if it's just ridiculous, yep, maybe they go. What is close? Is 31-7 is the Big 12. That's been a number that people have tossed out. It had to be 30. What, in your opinion, would be close? Is 20 too low? I know you're not making the decision, but this is part of your your alma mater. 25, 26. What would you think might be, at least in just your opinion, it doesn't have to be right or wrong, but in your opinion, might be close enough? Well, my opinion usually is right, but, I'll take a crack at it. I love it. I love it. I think, when I hear $20 million, that's what they're getting now. So I think it's got to be north of that. And if they have this linear sub-licensing with ESPN, and maybe it's $5 million per team per year for that, or maybe it's given more weight to teams that actually go on ESPN, like they've got a marquee game with some of the more marquee programs. Because I think Utah's kind of earned the right to be one of those schools. And if it's, maybe I just wouldn't jump ship. If it's like 28, to 34, a little bit under, a little bit over, I don't see that as something that I would go, yeah, let's just, rip off the Band-Aid, and because there are a lot of good things. I mean, the Pac-12 this season, guys. Oh, I know. Is loaded. Like, it's going to be a fun year to watch football in the Pac-12, and so it's not it has a perception, but the reality of the conference and the quality of teams is totally, two separate things. They might have 3 or 4 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks in the same conference. I can't wait. Utah, Baylor in September. Maybe Baylor, because it's kind of the unknown with who they were after last year. But Utah plays Big 12 type football, even though it's known as a wide open. It's not always that way. Love to see their style and what they've done.
Can't wait to see you, Scott. Thank you very much for your time. I know you got your own show to do, and we appreciate your time with us and access.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, also in the NFL, Dolphins, Lions. That's what I remember him the most, and, of course, the Ravens and Bengals.
Here's how crazy it is that we have Scott Mitchell on the show, a guy that I would love to ask 500 NFL questions to about his career.
We'll get him on again.
We'll get him on because I'm always interested because we've had a couple. We had Eric Kramer on at the Super Bowl this year, and he's got a really harrowing, great story.
Yeah,
that
tried
he had
to kill
come back
himself.
from. But Scott Mitchell, Eric, there's all these guys that played with Barry Sanders, and my question to all the quarterbacks who played with Barry Sanders is, did you ever hand the ball off and then go, oh, crap, I've got to get in somebody's way because it just...
Or what? Did you ever not hand the ball off and go, why the hell did I not hand the ball off to Barry Sanders?
And here's the other question for Scott Mitchell. He had to take over for Dan Marino week 6 of the 93 season when Marino went down with a season-ending injury in a Dolphins team that thought they were going to go to the playoffs. And he played well, but that was the Bills were controlling that division. The Patriots were kind of on the up that year. But I wonder what it's like to be, have Don Shula go, Mitchell, you're in the game. Marino's out. And you're like, I mean, there's probably a little bit of like, yes, let's go, or, oh, God.
We are going to do something. I'm going to make a decision here. We're going to break. We're going to have, because Matt McChesney just said he wants to come on, and Garrett's lining up a Zoom. Can we? Oh my God, we got. Let's go to Josh Newman. I mean, I'm serious. I know we got spots, and we're going to make them because our sponsors are incredible. We will make them up. We will do them before the end of the show. Is that okay, Paul?
Whatever you say.
Josh. No. I mean, Josh Newman. And then we'll have Matt McChesney. Again, he's a former Colorado player. Yesterday couldn't come on because something happened at the office, and so he wasn't available. Jason Scheer will be a little bit after 4 now, but we'll get him on. And thanks to everyone that is a part of what we have going on now in the chat room. A lot of discussion about the Pac-12, the meeting they had, whatever numbers might be there. And Josh Newman, who's a contributor for KSL in Salt Lake City, covered Utah and has and continues to, joins us on 365 Sports. Josh, we just had Scott Mitchell on. He was great. So they had the meeting today. There is some speculation about the possibility of details. In your opinion, if the number that is at the base is like $20 million, whether there's incentives for subscriptions or et cetera, whatever it might be, which means that it's not really there, but it can be. What number have you heard, and not just Utah, but what number have you heard that the Pac-12 needs to reach to keep everybody happy? Because obviously Colorado didn't like what they saw or thought they had.
Yeah, my understanding before this meeting today was that, the Pac-12 number had to come in, comparable to what the Big 12 is getting now, approaching that. Now, in my personal opinion, if we're talking a matter of like $3 million, $4 million away, that's a wash because, at $3 million, $4 million away, you're still in the neighborhood, right, of the Big 12, and you're still getting yourself lined up for the next TV deal. Okay. Now that's what a lot of this is about, right? We saw the meeting happen today. We saw what Pete Thamel reported. This is a Apple TV centric media rights deal, primarily streaming. And look, on the surface, it might not make much sense now, but what has to happen now is the presidents and the chancellors and the athletic directors have to absorb what they heard today from the commissioner, George Kliavkoff, and they not only have to decide if it makes sense now, but does it make sense down the road in 2028, 2030 when you're going back to the bargaining table? So, as has been the case here for 13, 14 months, the Pac-12 has kind of been at a sort of crossroads. And they remain at that crossroads now, with the recent happenings with Colorado opting to leave to go home to the Big 12. Not only that, but also what happened today at this meeting, learning what the media rights deal could look like here.
So, Josh, what would be the hang-ups for, say, Arizona appears to be the one that's most likely to pull the trigger fastest because outside of Colorado, they've been the ones that seem to be most flirtatious with the idea of being somewhere else. But for Utah, Arizona State, what would be their hang-ups about, look, if there's an $11 million, $12 million gap about just taking the Big 12 deal if they can get it?
Look, I can't speak to what Arizona's mindset is right now, but from a Utah perspective, 10 days ago at Pac-12 Media Day, right, Mark Harlan, the athletic director, was on stage in Las Vegas, and he made it very clear what what Utah's position is, specifically Utah. Their position is that they are a member of the Pac-12. They want to remain a member of the Pac-12, and they want to see this thing through. Now, that was before the Colorado news. That was before today's meeting. How much has changed for Utah since then? I don't know that a whole lot has changed, right? That has been, the consistent position of the athletic department and of the university, publicly behind closed doors. They want to remain a member of the Pac-12. Now, look, that's not to say that there have not been back channel conversations and some meetings with the Big 12. The University of Utah has certainly had, I don't want to call it preliminary conversations with the Big Ten, but they've certainly reached out for feedback. And my personal opinion, I do think that there is an avenue for, not now, but for Utah at some point down the road to wind up in the Big Ten. Not on this round, but I do think that there's an avenue to be had in the next round when we do this again in 2027, 28, 30. So, Utah is trying to line itself up now, what makes sense now, but also what makes sense down the road. Now, in terms of right now, it's been made pretty clear that Utah is not going to be the aggressor here, right? They are just not going to follow Colorado out the door. I think there is some sense here locally that, okay, Arizona is the linchpin. If Arizona opts to leave, my question then becomes, well, do they have to take Arizona State with them? Is it a package deal? So then if you're talking about Arizona and Arizona State leaving, that puts the Big 12 at 15. If you want to get to an even number at 15, then Utah kind of comes more into the discussion as a potential 16th member at the Big 12.
So they don't want to be the one that like unties the shoestrings fall apart, right? They want to, if in fact they need you, but isn't Utah in the position to do whatever the hell they want? Aren't they that good right now?
I don't know if they're in a position to do whatever they want. I mean, yeah, look, they're unofficially, they're the preeminent football power in the Pac-12 until somebody says that they're not, right? They beat USC twice last year, including in the Pac-12 championship game. But look, you guys cover college athletics. It's not all about football, and it's not all about athletics. Athletics on a major college campus like Utah, that's only a small part of the university machine. Now, look, from an academic standpoint, Utah is an AAU member. I believe 5 or 6 Pac-12 schools are still AAU members. So you have to consider the fact that Taylor Randall, the president at the University of Utah, let's say in a vacuum that he wants to leave the Pac-12 for the Big 12. Taylor Randall would have to walk into his board of trustees and explain why he wants to take his university out of the Pac-12 as it currently stands with half a dozen AAU members and move it to the Big 12 with 1. And Utah is a tier 1 research institution now. So there's a lot of factors going on here besides athletics. So it's not just as simple as, well, Utah can do whatever it wants. Utah this, athletics, football, all the women's sports that have had success, that's great, and that's a part of the puzzle, but it's not the entire puzzle.
Okay, so when we had Scott Mitchell on with Baylor, as you know, Josh, they will play Utah in September, which will be a hell of a home game for Baylor. Should be a packed house, and then they have Texas right around the corner, and they're coming off of 6-7. We know what Utah is. What is that thought about that game? Because 2 years ago, Brigham Young comes to Waco. That same year, they end up in the Big 12. This year, Colorado's playing at TCU, and next year they're a part of the Big 12. So I'm not trying to say anything, but it does seem interesting that game is being played this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't try to connect those dots too much, but from a right now Utah Baylor game standpoint, I think it's interesting because we have a situation here where Cam Rising, right, the 6th-year senior quarterback, is coming off a torn ACL, and they are kind of up against the clock here trying to get Rising ready for the opener here on August 31st against against Florida, with Baylor to come after that game. So the situation now is very interesting because if Rising cannot go, you are looking at a situation where Brandon Rose, a redshirt freshman who has never taken a collegiate snap, would be in line to start against Florida on August 31st. Now, with that, I do believe that if Brandon Rose were to start, he is capable of beating Florida here in Salt Lake City at Rice-Eccles Stadium, where Utah has been untouchable for 2.5 seasons. So you can beat Florida with Rose and with help. But I think asking Rose to walk into Baylor and to do it again, I think that's a much tougher task. So if you're without Rising for that Baylor game, things get a lot more interesting for Utah, just with a complete lack of experience at the QB position.
The good news for Utah in that Florida game is they have a quarterback who's never taken a snap, but Florida has quarterbacks that their fans wish had never taken a snap before. They're stressed out in Gainesville about who that's going to be right now, Josh. So even if they have to navigate the early part of the season without Cam Rising, do you feel good about them through the later part of the season when he comes back, being able to stay in that race, given that the league, which is the saddest part about this whole Pac-12 thing, is this might have be as good as they will have ever been top to bottom?
No, and that's a great point. I mean, the Pac-12 is kind of set up from a strictly football standpoint. This is potentially the most interesting Pac-12 football season in recent memory, specifically because of the quarterback talent between Cam Rising and Caleb Williams, and Michael Penix Jr. at Washington, and Bo Nix at Oregon, and on down the list. You've got, 8 of the 12 teams have like legitimate starting quarterbacks. So, and it's a shame that, all of this realignment stuff has kind of taken over everything. And of course, this is not getting settled today, right? This is going to go on for weeks, if not months. So, with Rising, I really do believe, just having watched Rising and having watched Utah the last 2 seasons, if Rising is healthy, if he is fully capable at 100%, anything is possible for Utah. That said, this is the most brutal schedule that they've played in program history. You've got 11 Power 5 games. I said Florida and Baylor. Look, you have to go to Oregon State on a Friday night. It's going to be a zoo. You have to go to USC. You have to go to Washington in November. Washington could still be in the college football playoff mix. You have to go to Seattle with the weather in November. You have to host Oregon again. So it's a very treacherous road. Now, again, if Rising is ready, anything's possible. Now, there is some thinking that, look, if he's not ready for the opener, okay, if he misses Florida, if he misses Baylor, hold him out the next week, okay, against Weber State, an FCS team down here. There's definitely a belief that if he is ready for the Pac-12 opener on September 23rd, that would suffice for everybody, because at least you're putting yourself in the mix to win the Pac-12 if he's ready by the Pac-12 opener.
All right, Josh, so in the end, if it's $20 million or so, you've given a number. Even Scott Mitchell kind of gave us a number. No one knows what the heck yet it really is. But if you were to put on a scale of 1 to 10 that Utah would be a part of the Big 12 starting in 2024, would that number for you, I'm going to guess, would be like a 3? Would it even be that high, or would it be a little bit higher than that, just on the unknown of what's going on with the media deal?
Yeah, as you were talking and asking that question, my immediate knee-jerk number was 3. I just don't think there's a lot of possibility there. Now, look, if things go completely haywire, okay, if Arizona bails and Arizona State, if things really start falling apart, we can talk about this again. But sitting here right now, knowing what we know, knowing what went on in that meeting today, yeah, I would put the possibility of Utah joining the Big 12 in time for 2024. I would put that at a 3.5 right now.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate your time with KSL.com, a contributor covering the University of Utah, the Utes. And coming up, we'll take a break. Matt McChesney will come back. He's a former Colorado defensive end. He's also a part of a gym and a fitness, and he trains prospects, those who might be going to Colorado or elsewhere. He's going to join us next. Jason Scheer at 4 or a little bit after that, and Bob Thompson today at 5. This is 365 Sports. Don't go anywhere. I'm just going to guess. Paul, you tell me. I got so many pieces of paper. Woodway, the city of Woodway. Thank you very much. DiscoverWoodway.com is the website. And what they have, and I told you this, and this is a great deal, they have what's going to be that the cookout. The father and son first annual cookout in October. Now, you say that's a long wait. First of all, that's good because it's hot as hell and you want to go out and hamburgers and hot dogs. You can do that now. It's summertime, picnics, wherever you might be at the park. But October 21st, jot it down, 11 to 1 on October 21st, the father and son cookout, and there's going to be some other festivities along the way. From the Heritage Creamery, ice cream will be arriving from them. Double our burgers, hot dogs, and hamburgers, which is awesome because they are awesome. And then, coming up in about a week and a half, Woodway Family Movie Night featuring Luca. That's coming up. You can for more information on tickets and location. Anything Woodway when it comes to hotels. They have 7 of them for you to use if you come into town and you can't find one, or that's where you go first at discoverwoodway.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma. And they have to come here. They're used to lights. They're used to water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sick'em 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at sick'em365.com.
I don't know if he's going to get that. All right, Matt McChesney played at Colorado, defensive lineman, played in the NFL. Was going to be a part of the show yesterday, but we moved it to today. And, of course, there's always news going on when it comes to the Pac-12 and the Big 12 and Colorado and maybe somebody else. Matt, thank you very much for joining us today on Zoom with Paul Catalina. And I'm David Smoak. Matt McChesney joins us. Matt, what has been the reaction? It's been a few days, but just the overall reaction now that Colorado in the Big 12 in 2024 is complete.
Guys, sorry about yesterday. Thanks for rescheduling that. Look, as a proud Buff, I'm ecstatic. I played in the Big 12, the old Big 12, but still, there's a lot of similarities in the new Big 12. I feel like Colorado's coming home. It may not be exactly the same, but it's still home base. I never thought the Pac-12 move was smart. I thought it was a money grab, and it did not bode well for the university at all. The other programs, basketball and so on and so forth, they never took off either from a basketball school perspective. So I'm really ecstatic that we're going back, and everybody that I've talked to is. We just never really fit in the Pac-12, and it's I feel like regardless of what happened today with all the meetings, I feel like the Pac-12 is on its last leg, and it's probably a very smart move by Colorado to go back to its old stomping grounds and be able to go back to Texas and be able to recruit with Coach Prime and everything he has done down there, being a Dallas Cowboy and all that. I think that it's just a very, very smart and heady move.
Matt, you were playing for Colorado when it was not outside the realm of possibility. In fact, playing for conference titles and being a mover and a shaker in the league.
Yes, sir.
Do you how important do you think this move is to get the fan base back, especially the young ones who don't remember it, to knowing and believing that this is a team that can contend and won a national title? I mean, there's great history at Colorado football.
Oh, yeah. I mean, during their Big 8 days, they won a natty and played for another one. And then, the Big 12 came around in '96 when I was a freshman in high school. And, it was a great league. So when I played from 2000 to 04, the national championship representative came out of the Big 12. Almost every year we had a team in the natty. And, we were always in the Big 12 title game. We won one in 01 against Texas. We lost in 02 against Oklahoma. We lost in 04 against Oklahoma. In 05, they lost to Texas again. But there was a long string where we were, dominating the division. And I know there's no divisions in the conference now, but at the same time, Colorado coming back to the conference, if you look at the history, Colorado and Kansas State are tied for the most conference title appearances, and we haven't been in the conference for 15 years. So that should tell you that I feel like this program can come back and compete immediately. I know that there's going to be turnover with Coach Sanders this year with the Pac-12, but even moving into next year, they're going to be really deep. They are recruiting their asses off. People want to play for Coach Prime. The state of Colorado is super excited about this and behind that man and everything he's doing. It's hard to play in Boulder again, which is so fantastic. I love hearing that. I'm in the gym right now. It's hot. It's cooking. We're working. The weight room's full. And, over the last 15 years, it's guys getting in Colorado, they get offered, they're good players. And they're like, yeah, I might go to CU. It's something that I'll do if something else doesn't happen. And now, the University of Colorado, if you're not a 4 or 5 star, they're going to look for somebody else. And that is what I was used to when I played there. That's how I was recruited. And it's not supposed to be for everybody. It's an elite place for elite prospects. And Coach Sanders has brought that back to being primetime, what it is. So I'm pumped, and I know that people are going to have to get on the Google machine or get on YouTube or social media and find this film, and it's pixelated and it's old and all that other stuff because we've been bad for a while. I'm not going to sit here and act like we haven't been. But the Big 12 Colorado Buffaloes are a different team than the Pac-12 Colorado Buffaloes. I really feel this in my heart of hearts. A part of I wanted this so bad. I would pray about it. Please God, get us out of the Pac-12 and back to our old stomping grounds, even if it is different, because so much of your identity in college football is wrapped up in your rivals and who you play and the history. And now we get to go back to a conference where we have deep-seated history with Kansas State, hatred. They were a North Division rival that, if we beat them, we got to play for the Big 12 title pretty much every year with Nebraska being gone out of the conference. And history with Kansas and Iowa State and Oklahoma State and Baylor and Texas Tech and all these schools, I just can't wait to reignite all that with the Colorado fan base. And the Colorado fan base is pumped about coming home. And I'm very eager to see who else they invite in and who that 14th school is. I hope they go to 16 and then 20. But this is a dream come true, and I really, truly believe this, not just being a homer. I think this is the kind of move with Coach Sanders at the helm and the guys he's already brought in. Now that they know they get to go back to Texas and play twice a year and, just the coast to coast conference that the Big 12's putting together, how aggressive they are. I think they know that there's blood in the water and they can go in and compete immediately.
Matt, is that what your former teammates also think, or those who you train, et cetera, that have been a part of the Colorado program? I would think that's probably pretty much down the line the same as you feel, correct?
Absolutely. Pretty much everybody I played with, well, not pretty much everyone, every coach, every player. I was at Broncos training camp today. I had a collared shirt on for that one. Keep in mind, I'm in the gym. This isn't just how I look all the time. It is, but it's not. I'm at Broncos training camp today, and I saw Caleb Wilson and Chris Wilson. Chris Wilson was my defensive line coach at CU forever. Was a great Oklahoma linebacker back in the day. Was most recently the D coordinator at CU when they were just having problems. And his son now, Caleb, is a grad assistant at Purdue. He's doing a coaching intern for the Broncos. So I was out there covering training camp practice, watching everybody run around and whatnot. And I saw them and talking to them about it. This is the first thing we talked about was, he's even like, I'm so glad we're going home. And it's such a great opportunity for Colorado. And, now you can actually be proud of your history and back to, where we have rings and we have history and actual conference championships. So for him to say that immediately right away, we haven't seen each other for a year, it's embedded in all of us. It's where we're supposed to be. Again, the Pac-12, I don't know, man. I don't like California. I don't like going to California. I don't feel like the Pac-12 cares about football. You go to a game in Waco, it's packed. You go to a game at TCU, it's packed. You go to a game at West Virginia, and it's packed. They care. You go to Cincinnati, they give a shit. BYU cares. All the Big 8 schools. I mean, come on, man. Stillwater is rampant, and Texas Tech, they care. They've been putting so much money into that program down in Lubbock. And, I mean, Manhattan, Kansas, which I think that now with Nebraska out of the conference and Oklahoma gone and so on and so forth, I think Colorado and Kansas State is going to turn into one of the premier rivalries in the Big 12 because there's no love lost with the people in Manhattan and the people in Boulder. We have been going shoulder to shoulder here for years. And I am so excited about that specific rivalry being back. But, I mean, if you can't tell, I'm pretty excited about this.
Oh, yeah. You would have played against the Bill Snyder teams, right?
Oh, bro, those were such wars. I mean, from 2000 to 04, I'm telling you, man, Coach Barnett would walk in and say, look, boys, if you do not buckle up this weekend and bring your lunch pail, they are going to beat the shit out of you. And you're like, oh, my God, we are ready for this. So Bill Snyder built the hell out of that program. And, I remember back in the day when I was a kid watching the Buffs, when I was 9, 10 years old, they would beat Kansas State like 66-0. And then all of a sudden they get Michael Bishop and Snyder comes in there and they take off and they just rode that momentum. And look, we send a lot of guys to Kansas State in this room. Jake Stonebreaker is a fantastic linebacker I work with here from Douglas County. He's committed to Kansas State. Coach Klein is from Loveland, another kid from Colorado that they stole. So Kansas State now, they love this too. They get to come into Denver and say, look, now you get to come back to Denver and beat Colorado. And that rivalry is going to spark. I'm telling you, Kansas State's a nice basketball rivalry, but Kansas State, Colorado is going to turn into a big time bloodbath on Saturdays.
Matt, you mentioned that you don't think some schools in the Pac-12 maybe are as passionate about football. Do you feel like Colorado got away from their passion in any way about football, and that is kind of also? Am I reading that correctly? That you're pumped about that?
I mean, look, it's almost. You can't help it. I mean, if you try and immerse yourself in the community and the Pac-12 culture, and you go to a game at Cal and there's 5 people there and the stadium's falling apart and no one cares. And you go, I went to a game at Stanford where they played Arizona. I had a couple guys that played for them, and there were literally 5 people there, bro. Like there's no one there, and it was a college game, a conference game, and it's embarrassing. And I'm not saying that every atmosphere is bad. Auxin is incredible. They care in Corvallis. They care at Washington State. I'm not saying they don't. But UCLA and USC don't sell out their stadiums, and they're supposed to be historical badass programs. I mean, UCLA, they have to put up banners in their stadium because it's too damn big. And the Pac-12 culture, the way that I looked at it when I was playing, is we would schedule preseason games against Pac-12 teams, not preseason, but non-conference. And with the exception of USC that beat us twice, we stomped everybody we played from the Pac-12. So I thought moving there was a mistake. I thought it was a soft conference, but we got there and we became the soft in the conference. And it's because of when we moved. Like, I think if CU would have moved to the Pac-12 in the year 2000 with Gary Barnett at the helm, without Dan Hawkins and what he did to the program before they moved, I think it may have been healthier. But the move to the Pac-12 and just have the games being on so late and being a Midwestern school, really, and trying to acclimate to just that culture and the California elitist mindset and all that, it just wasn't a good fit. And I truly believe that the Pac-12 people don't care like the Big 12 people, not top to bottom. They may care at Oxon and Oregon and Washington, but I mean, come on, man, there's absolutely no comparison between going to a game in Lubbock and going to a game at Stanford. I mean, it's a joke. So I'm so glad we're back home for that reason alone, so we can be proud of our football community and our culture. Like, it's almost like the Pac-12 almost looks down on it to a sense. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's almost a bad thing that there's a community and a history, and they're always trying to like dig up something that's bad about it. And I'm just not with that. I think that we should glorify it. So just the Midwest cares more. There's a reason that Colorado kids don't want to play in the Pac-12. I don't know how many guys I've said that have walked into my office that are like, I'll go anywhere, I just don't want to play in the Pac-12. So now with CU leaving, I think it opens up the door for them to really recruit their own state at a heavier pace as well.
Matt, I can say this because you're on Zoom and you can't find me in for a while, but you were a part of the Colorado team that took the heart and soul out of one of the best dynasties in college football history. I was born in Omaha. You know where I'm going with this.
Yes, I do.
I remember what Colorado, Barnett said prior to that game, because Nebraska had Krauts. They were undefeated. They were rolling. They obviously were partially a fraud because Colorado, you beat the crap out of them. What was said that week that led to such an ass-kicking?
Well, that game for us in Boulder, I mean, I can't wait for September for the second game of the season. I can't wait. I encourage them to come to Boulder. I don't care if you sell your tickets. They'll be there to watch them lose again. So I missed that game. I hope that we can figure out a way to play it every year or go on rotation with Oklahoma or something. I miss those games so bad. But the Colorado-Nebraska game in 2001, I remember sitting, and it was really the night before what really set it off for us. The year before in 2000, we were not a good team, but we had a good team. We had lost a bunch of games close. We started the year off 0-3 and then beat a ranked team in A&M on the road and then lost a bunch of games. And I remember playing in Lincoln as a freshman, and we went up with like 30 seconds left with a pass from Oaks to Minardi in the back of the end zone. The whole place goes silent. And then we squib kick it, and it ricochets off some guy's back. And like they get it at the 40, they throw 2 out routes and kick like a 53-yard field goal to beat us by a point. And that was the culmination of 10 years of like losing 16-12 and losing 33-31 in overtime. And like all these just gut-wrenching, terrible losses. And my whole family's from Nebraska. And I would always get the phone call afterwards with the Go Big Red song laughing at us. And it stuck in my crawl. And my whole recruiting class, we were brought in and we were told, like, look, we're bringing you in to beat these guys and destroy this. And that's why you're here. And that's why we went to school there. That's why the class came in. That's why the class before us was so good and so on and so forth. So long story short, the night before, we're watching game day, and Herb Street's up there. And remember, Bedlam is the day before.
Right.
See Colorado State. And Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma in Bedlam. And they're up there talking about it, and Oklahoma State's like, on the field in Norman, and Oklahoma's not going to go to the Big 12 title game because Texas is going to beat Texas A&M, so on and so forth. And they're saying that, Colorado has no chance. Nebraska and Texas is going to be an all-time game in the Big 12 title game. The winner's going to go to the Fiesta Bowl and play an undefeated Miami team. And we were sitting there like, Like we have 2 losses, bro. Like we are not slaps. We are rolling. And we are so mad at this group anyway. They have no idea what they're walking into. And they didn't. It was a buzzsaw. Like they were eyes on the ground. They wanted no part of it that day. We literally took their soul. And then the 0-1 game is incredible. But honestly, brother, just to stick it back at you, the 0-4 game in Lincoln where we ended the bull streak.
Yep.
And I know you love Bill Callahan, but I know you love that guy just as much as I do.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Like the ability to end the bull streak and then walk out of that stadium and the whole stadium's like, there's guys that were 50 years old that have never seen that before.
Absolutely.
And it just, I miss the rivalry. I'm glad they're playing again this year and next year, and I really hope that they can figure that out. I mean, look, I know Nebraska will never do this, but they could come home too. That would be pretty kick-ass.
No, you're right, and lost part of who they were, even though they're making half.
I really
think
that they miss the Big 12 bad. Don't you guys?
Well, I do, and yet again, it's positioning yourself to be around and be included in 10, 15 years too. But as far as I'm concerned, they have not been the same at all.
Matt, I have to tell you a story about Smokey and Bill Callahan. So we are at Cowboys training camp when he was the offensive line coach, offensive coordinator. And he walked by, and the way that Cowboys are in Oxnard, they have all the radio stations and media are set up on the tennis courts, and the fields are behind you. He walked in front of our tent where we're broadcasting to walk on the field, and Smokey shot him the dead eyes, like F you stare like you have never seen before. And
he deserved it.
Yeah. And I looked over, started laughing. I said, "Oh, that's your buddy there." And he's like, "Yeah." About a day or so later, one of the media people comes over and they're going over, okay, here's who you can get. We get this player and this player, and you'll have 1 or 2 assistant coaches. Who of this group do you want? And he starts out with Bill Callahan, forgetting Smokey is a Nebraska diehard, and goes, Bill Callahan. Smokey said no so fast. No.
Yeah, and again, they're irrelevant, and Colorado has been too, so it's interesting to see what prime effect has had. Matt, I got to tell you, anytime I ever get in a fight with anybody, I'm sending you to them. You are a bad son of a gun, and it's great to have you. Seriously, Brian Howell's the one who recommended we contact you. So glad we did. He's a great dude. We've had him on a lot. Who sees what happens down the road? We don't know about the rest of the Pac-12 or Big 12 and how it changes, but having you on has been refreshing, a breath of fresh air, and love your transparency. And let's stay in touch, okay? Thank you.
Please do. I'd love to come on whenever you guys need a guest, and have a great college football season, guys. This is going to be a hell of a year.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, bud. Matt,
you know what, gentlemen? Have a good day.
McChesney, former Colorado defensive lineman. Man, that was fun. Jason Scheer, by the way, knows we were running a little bit behind. Who's going to stop the segment with Matt? Not even Jason Scheer, with all his knowledge of late and for the last year, is going to do that.
I told Emery that I'll take on Matt. SummerSlam 24, tables, ladders, and chairs. No,
absolutely. From Zoom, but we would do it via Zoom. All right, we've heard from Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, on a lot from him. We heard as well from Josh Newman, who covers Utah for KSL.com. And there's Matt McChesney. Coming up, Jason Scheer. Around the corner, less than an hour away, Bob Thompson, to break down what we have discussed with him now for really over a year. His thoughts about what he's heard from today's meeting within the Pac-12. But Jason Scheer is next, and this is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
We try to bring you different perspectives and different opinions, different ideas, and we have so far in the first hour plus. Thanks to our guest, and again, Matt McChesney was phenomenal, former Colorado defensive lineman. That was fun. Josh Newman, Mitchell, Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, now on radio in Salt Lake City. And then Jason Scheer, who has been all over it and took a bunch of arrows and darts and even grenades that were sent his way as he's reported this story about the Pac-12. And here we are today with the meeting, which he, of course, had when he had the information first yesterday. Jason, thanks for your time. So what do you know about any specific details, if anything, or roundabout figures of what's going on?
Yeah, so I heard that basically today at the meeting, the number was in the low 20s. I've heard anywhere from 20 to 22 was the highest number. The biggest thing is that Apple, it's with Apple, and it basically is being presented as, yeah, look, your base is 22. Let's just pick the higher number. Your base is 22, but if you get a certain amount of subscriptions, it could go all the way up to whatever. Like, there's no cap on it. And that's how it's being sold by George Kliavkoff, is basically like, yeah, the base number isn't as high, but we have the potential to get much higher.
So, Jason, why would anybody take that deal unless they had no other options?
And to me, I don't know. And then what a source told me is that the deal is not, in exact wording was, the deal is not good enough for the school with options. And basically, you wouldn't take that deal because even if you're being, if you think it's the maximum, there's so much that would have to go into you maximizing that deal with subscriptions, etc. And then I don't understand how a college could budget that. That's one of the concerns that was brought up to me, is that money is fluctuating. And so it's very difficult to be able to budget an athletic department basically based on an unknown amount of money. I think if this is that good of a deal, you would have had positive leaks coming from the Pac-12 and you would have had a more positive outlook than basically all the reports are like, hey, we're going to hold another meeting eventually.
So, Jason, let's say the number's 22. Again, who knows? But let's just say it's $22 million as a base. And then the subscriptions, incentives, whatever the wording or lingo might be. Can it, if in fact they were to do pretty well, it's going to be a hell of a conference this year, lots of Heisman Trophy type figures, names, stars. Do you have, in the past, has that moved the needle before? And could it actually end up being a better number than what we've heard about with the Big 12, but a lot of streaming?
I would be really surprised if it ever reached that Big 12 number. I mean, the rumor is it's $1 per subscription. That's been the rumor. So you would have to come up with an insane number because then you're splitting the money. And that's something we also don't know is how many schools Apple has agreed to. Is it 10 schools? Is it 12 schools? We don't know that number. That's something that I haven't been able to find out. And is there any linear whatsoever? I mean, because you have to think, even if they sub-license games, how much is that going to be worth? Because Apple isn't going to give any of their best games to, say, an ESPN or a Fox or anything like that. They're Apple. They're going to keep all their top content. And so it's difficult for me to see a scenario that they could reach the Big 12. And remember, that 31-7 with the Big 12, that's their base. So even if everything went right and you reach the Big 12's number of 31-7, you've just reached their base. You haven't actually reached what the Big 12 is getting.
So, Jason, how quickly do you believe that Utah will move if they've made the decision to leave the conference?
Yeah, that's something I can't get an answer to. I know that Arizona's gone dark. The Arizona Border Regions representatives are not responding to anyone. Hickey and Robbins have not responded to anyone. That's why there's no quotes up there right now. The meeting is kind of up in the air. No one knows exactly how detailed the Border Regions meeting will be tonight. Do I think something happens in 24 hours? Probably not. But I also wouldn't be shocked. I think we'll get a better idea. There's probably going to be some leaks to report after the Board of Regents meeting. I don't think anything is necessarily imminent in the next 24 hours, but, you never know.
All right, so you say 24 hours. Do you feel like, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, because we don't know how long these take, and you've even said this could be a day or two or it could be 3 or 4 weeks. Do you feel like there's any chance by the end of the week that Arizona – I guess, apt yes than no, that they'll be a part or at least enter or want an invitation to the Big 12?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll get announced, but I think we're headed in the direction where Arizona is heavily leaning towards the Big 12 right now. I tweeted a while ago that Robbins has said on record to CBS before that the maximum amount of streaming he would take is 50%. This deal presented today is way more than 50%. There's not enough money involved. It basically went against everything that he said that he wanted. And I don't think it's going to be better. He's smart enough to realize if the Pac-12 commission is buying time. I believe that it is more likely than not at this point that Arizona will move towards the Big 12. Again, this stuff is so fluid and all that. I'm not guaranteeing anything's going to happen, but I do believe we're headed in that direction.
So, is there anything about what you've learned today about the deal that made you say, hey, that's not bad?
To be honest, no. There really isn't. And, maybe the 22, I guess if you say that the number, I've heard from a few people that it was closer to 22 than 20. I mean, that, $2 million, I guess, would be your benefit. But even then, that number is just too low. The linear part, the fact that it's almost all streaming, that's too much. It's not I'll say this. We know that there's some Pac-12 writers that are trying to put everything positive they can out about the Pac-12, and they've been quiet for the most part today. And if there was something, I believe it was your Mark even said, or maybe a second in command said, if we had good news regarding our deal, we'd be yelling it to the rooftops, right? And no one has said anything about any positive aspect of this deal that was presented today.
And to make sure, we also sometimes think we take for granted, don't we, Paul and Jason, that we like everyone knows the story from the beginning. If you don't have linear, like a nice solid amount of linear, ESPN and or Fox, you lose the ability to be promoted. Isn't that one of the things you miss, other than the fact people could watch you easier?
Yeah, I mean, it is a massive hit to the brand, right? How are you promoting? You turn on ESPN and, you're getting promotions for every game. During games, they're mentioning you're at the next game and all that, and all these other channels. Apple, although they have a ton of money and all that, your brand is taking a hit. It's just not as visible as it would be. And, if you could come up with some sort of equal distribution where some of it's streaming and others linear, you're fine. Like, you could live with that. But to have, let's say, 80% streaming, it absolutely kills your brand, in my opinion.
What is the Big 12? One ESPN Plus game a weekend in football? Is that right? Am I right there?
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. So, Jason, how do you think this has changed the temperature for some of the schools that are Pac-12 till we die?
I think if you're ASU in Utah, you have to sit down and really seriously consider your future. That this was a bit of okay, this is the best we've got. It's August 1st, the season's coming. How is this deal going to get better? That's the thing also is, is there any way that this deal can be approved on? And people forget with Apple. Apple was going to sign an agreement with the NFL. I mean, it was very close. So then Apple basically said, you know what, never mind. For all we know, they're going to do the same with the Pac-12. Nothing is finalized with Apple until it's finalized. And you have to decide, my guess is part of the pitch that I've heard is basically Pac-12 is commission saying, look, in 2030, everyone's going to want to be on streaming, but we're going to be the first ones there. And we may take a hit now, but everyone will want to be where we are. And you either believe that or you don't. And if you believe that, you say to yourself, we're willing to take that hit and to try to come out, better in 2030 in the next cycle, or you go to the Big 12.
Here's a note on the chat room, if you don't mind me, Jason. This is from Aaron Gillespie. Why would Nike, who, of course, we know that they basically back Oregon to the hilt, why would they want any limited exposure for their brand?
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think they would want full exposure. It's just a matter of how much say they have in the process. I mean, when this all started, everyone just assumed that Phil Knight would write a check and get Oregon in the Big Ten. And it hasn't happened. He hasn't been as involved as people thought he would be for whatever reason. He's kind of taken a back seat there. And maybe Oregon, the brand, just kind of isn't what people think it is in terms of Nike and all that. But it hasn't been, they haven't been as vocal. And that's another thing I'm curious. Like, what does Oregon and Washington do? Do they have no choice but to sign this deal? And how do you sign this deal with uneven revenue sharing? I mean, you got to be crazy to do that. And if you're at Oregon State or Washington State or whatever, even though you have no choice, and even if you're Arizona, is it 22.5, or is Oregon and Washington taking a chunk of that? And there's just so many factors at play right now.
All right, Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, with us on 365 Sports.
So, Jason, how much sleep do you expect to get the next, 96 hours?
I was stupid last night, and I stayed up and watched the soccer game, and then I woke up at 6:30, so I got a solid 3 hours of sleep last night. We'll know more. We'll know more after the meeting. I think there's a lot of rumors and a lot of, it's hard to chase them all down. Some of them are probably reliable, but I like to double and triple check, and that takes time. So probably not much, but I'm ready whenever whatever happens. I'll be ready.
So one of the other things about Apple is that who they are now, which is a monster, right? But is there a chance that at some point this could be, and I'm just trying to get all the angles, and Dennis just put this up, that CBS or Paramount CBS or CW might eventually be gobbled up by Apple, and then all of a sudden that's part of the deal?
I mean, it's possible, but the problem is, again, same thing with the subscription numbers. You're betting on something you don't know. And basically you're guessing and you're betting and you're trying to get lucky. Because you could say, yeah, maybe Apple's going to buy this, or maybe they'll combine with ESPN and all that, but you don't know that for a fact. And so you're basing that on it's going to happen. And, maybe that's being pitched to you, but at the end of the day, you don't have those numbers and you don't have that guarantee.
Jason, two things stick out to me here. I mentioned this at the top of our show. One, ask the actors and screenwriters right now how forthcoming the streamers are with their numbers when it comes to paying you your money. One. And two, it is not the Pac-12's job to sell the Apple TV Plus. It is Apple's job to do that. So if Apple isn't doing a good enough job of that on the Pac-12's end, they're putting a lot of faith in Apple to, be able to sell their brand. That's a leap.
You're basically putting the future of your conference into Apple's hands, because if it goes poorly, and remember, this is the same thing that they did with Larry Scott and the Pac-12 network. Mm-hmm. Larry Scott sold the Pac-12 network based on subscriptions and said, look, we're going to get subs, we're going to break it out often, and we're all going to get rich. And it failed miserably. And that's one of the reasons, it's hard for me to believe that the school presidents, and I know Apple's different, but you're basically making the same choice all over again, basing your athletic funding off subscriptions. And you're right. If Apple doesn't feel like putting in a certain amount of money, and that could be part of the agreement, we'll put in X amount of money per year advertising. I don't know. But if they don't, and that's not part of the agreement, they may just sit back and say, look, we'll pay you your 22.5. We'll throw a little bit more for advertising, and we win in this because we didn't really pay that much money.
Is there anything tied to the number of teams that have to be a part of the conference with any kind of a deal, or the length of the deal, or the money involved?
Yeah, that I have not heard. I've been chasing that. The rumor is that Apple will be able to pay, or will pay, for up to 12 schools, but that's something I haven't been able to confirm with enough people.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I saw on Twitter, because there's always the immediate. You mentioned the response of those who cover the conference or even nationally college football. This line was interesting about the deal and all that. Executives left the hour-long meeting with no agreement, we know that, but with the expectation of eventually concluding a deal. Now, I asked Ross Dellinger, who's the one who put that up, does that mean they're kicking the can down the road, or does that mean that everyone kind of liked what they saw? And his answer to me was basically, I have no idea. That's just something that he, I guess, put up. And the other one was, Jason, have you heard one person attached to the Pac-12, anybody, not just Robbins or Arizona or whoever else you talked to, that thought today was a positive day in any way?
The first thing with Ross, and I like Ross a lot, I don't think anyone knows. I do not get the impression at all that they are close to signing a deal. Today was the presentation, and I don't get because the thing is, if they were going to sign it, it would have been signed. Why would they wait? Why wouldn't they verbally agree? We know that the Big 12 deal leaked. We know that the Big 10 deal leaked weeks before it was actually finalized. I'm confident in saying that if they came to a verbal agreement of some sort today, we would know. That if today's meeting went well, we would know. Whether it's an unnamed source or a Pac-12 representative or whatever it be, they were very quick to talk after Colorado, and unnamed Pac-12 representative and all that, but not one Pac-12 person has said anything. Ross mentioned that there's another meeting, but notice no one actually knows when that next meeting is scheduled for. It feels like a delay tactic by George, and I'm sure the presidents realize that as well. But I just can't see a situation where today's meeting went awesome and we haven't heard it.
Why was the meeting today? Was it the August 1st note, that date? Because we've seen so many timelines along the way. And Jason, we're letting you go because I know you have other things to do besides be on with us, but we've enjoyed the relationship. Why today?
From what I understand, the Pac-12 president said we need to see the numbers. And it was as simple as that. I don't know if George even wanted to show what he showed today, but he didn't have a choice. Yeah, I mean, there's no way, right? Why would you show a bad deal?
Yeah,
and it's been a year, and he hasn't shown a deal. So why would the first deal he showed be bad? I get the vibe, and it's been insinuated to me that basically the president said, you need to show us what you have, no matter how bad or good it is. We need the numbers right now.
No matter what, just show us. And I don't think these numbers would have kept Colorado engaged with the Pac-12 had they come out about a week ago. Jason, continue doing what you do. We appreciate your time as always, and who knows, maybe tomorrow or by Friday or maybe not. But the possibility of the Big 12 growing one more team in 2024, and perhaps that's Arizona or somebody else or more. Thanks for your time, buddy. Great job.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, with a lot of different things that he brought up and answered, and also his own opinion and some of else of what he's thinking about. Man, what a day, huh? It is every day, the Pac-12, and now we'll see what happens. Paul, why do you think? You just think that finally they just said, listen, I don't give a damn. So you're whoever, Robbins or you're Schultz or whoever you are, Harlan, you're like, we don't care. You're not going to hurt our feelings. We're not going to punch you in the face. We may not even fire you or look for somebody else yet. We don't care how bad it is, but my God, show us so we at least know what it is.
Yeah, and
why wouldn't they have done that a month ago?
I don't.
Or maybe they did.
I can tell you why they didn't a month ago, because this is what he had, and he knew part of the. Here's, I think, one of the things that hung him up. This. I'm trying to think of a nicer term than the one that's in my head. Lust for beating the Big 12's number at all costs. That idea that it's going to be better, which is mostly floated by Pac-12, personality, people who are kind of shilling for the Pac-12, that it's a slam dunk to be better, all those things out there, but that they felt it would be better as opposed to just comparable, has put George Kliavkoff in a really tough spot, because they made a lot of bold promises or statements, and it's kind of put them in a tough spot because they did not. Colorado's the first one to step up and say, the reality of the situation is this. The conference for a year has not been operating in reality when it comes to what they're dealing with. They're operating on a lot of different things. And you heard Matt McChesney talk about it a lot, that in the college football circles, we do this show. We talk about it every day. People watching the show think about college football and talk about it every day.
Right.
They love it. But if you're the president at Cal, it doesn't really come up until these times.
And that's not a criticism of him.
No, but it's just
because he's got so many other things on his plate.
It's just kind of how it is, because it's not. Now, if you take the job at Georgia or Baylor or a school that is, big into football, then you're going to spend as much time on sports as you are on the business school.
Dr. Livingstone, who will join us on Friday, the president at Baylor, who's a part of the board of governors of the Big 12, who's a part of all the other things when it comes to the NCAA. You don't think she doesn't? She's an athlete, an ex-athlete at Oklahoma State. You don't think she understands the X's and O's of football and the value of the revenue? And we'll discuss that with her on Friday.
And that's one of the reasons that's maybe more attractive to schools that are more athletically driven than others. When you're hiring a president, is you have to hire somebody who knows sports. Now, we can relitigate the presidency of Ken Starr X's and O's wise when it comes down to it. But one of the things that he knew is he understood sports. He maybe, he took some wrong paths, but he understood sports. The Baylor had a couple presidents before him that didn't really. One of whom, who, for many other reasons, but the nail in his coffin was, let's change the logo. He didn't even think about, let's think about what the fans are wanting the fans like. It was just, hey, we hired this marketing firm. They said change the logo. And then the fans are like, well, the marketing firm's from Rhode Island. What do they know? They don't know what we want. They're not been down here. So it's all these different things that can undo you. So look, how many presidents has Texas A&M gone through, and how much of that was you allowed a stupid football coach that we don't like anymore? And I'm not knocking the guys.
Right.
But that's the feeling, is the football coach we don't like anymore, that was on you. That and this school and that school, and then now you're out. It is. You listen to Gates talk about how much of his life was Texas A&M football compared to what he would be at another school.
Right.
It was harder than being the Secretary of Defense at sometimes, for crying out loud. So, that's the difference. And I think that when you get into these things and you're a university president brought up in that university system that feels for that university, and then they tell you, well, here's the things that are going on in the rest of the country. They're like, well, why isn't that here? Well, how do we get that here? And then there's not a way to.
No, it's an interesting dynamic based on who you are, what your president, as far as who you are, your alums, your boosters, the donors, the interest. And it doesn't mean that Dr. Livingstone's not completely focused in on the academics or how they became, what is it, Paul, an R1 or R2, whatever. I get mixed up on those because I went to a school, Stephen F. Austin, that we didn't have those numbers because we were the Stanford of Texas. All right. There is so much out there, and everybody has you have so many opinions. We have not been able to jump into the chat room. Our next guest is former CEO at Fox Sports and President Bob Thompson. Thanks to Jim Williams for promoting what we've done or doing today and what we still have. He appreciate Jim, who you guys had on last week, and he's been very much a part of what we do. When we come back, let's dive into the chat room.
We have like four
or five super chats. We'll do that. I've copied and pasted 2 or 3 of them for us to make sure we get to, and we appreciate you. Every day, live 3 to 6, this is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. Samantha Duvall, I was on the phone with her last week and was discussing how now it's August 1st. And so, family reunions, they're still, but school's getting ready to start. Like, it's here. Football practices have started and much more. Colleges have started their workouts too. Baylor starts their first practice on Thursday. But that doesn't mean you stop eating steak or having brisket or cooking on the grill or in the smoker. Premium quality beef from their pasture to your plate. That's TexasBeefHouse.com. It is phenomenal. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids. Premium grade East Texas beef with the farm, the Wagyu Ranch, which is just outside of Tyler in White House. Their customers, you don't have to go out and buy. You can get it online by going to TexasBeefHouse.com, and they will deliver it to you. We have members of this show who have gone and contacted them, who have had phenomenal products sent back to them. In fact, I'll give you a tease. I'll give you his name a little bit later on. We've mentioned him. He's very, very giving. But we will start in September, maybe the last week in August, a chat room player of the week, member of the week, subscriber of the week, and give out 15 $100 gift cards from TexasBeefHouse.com. And we'll tell you about how that will happen as we get closer to that. So here it is. They are also, in fact, Samantha said they're having a cattle sale as far as the Wagyu beef. So get in touch with them if you want product shipped to you. The ribeye steaks, Wagyu steaks, New York strips, sirloin, what you need, brisket, sausage, hamburger meat, hamburger patties, some with jalapeno and cheese, some just regular. TexasBeefHouse.com is your place.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bars, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
All right, Paul Catalina to my left, David Smoak. This is 365 Sports, and we appreciate so many of you for being a part of what we have today. Bob Thompson around the corner. Appreciate if you've missed it, what we've had today. We'll have Bob Thompson a little bit after 5 o'clock, former Fox Sports CEO. I've actually seen people. I have seen people on Twitter, then the Super Chats, argue with Bob about the dynamics of negotiating a conference deal, the grant of rights between the conference, the members, and a network. Argue with him, saying to him, well, you really don't understand this part of the business. He's been in those rooms.
I'll call it a discussion with my near 17-year-old nephew about how the media works the other day, because he's kind of fallen into conspiracy theories. And he's like, well, you don't really know how that works, Uncle Paulie. And I went, oh, buddy. Look, I not only am I, do we in the media deal with all aspects of other media, we have to know how it works, or that's how you get in trouble, So I can't just post, I know that there's a glowing orb at Area 51 in a newspaper, and then not expect to get sued if there's not one. Like those are the things. So if you're going to fight with a guy who's done it,
yeah,
and look, there are people that will fight with people who have expertise on something, but that is what he did. I mean, he had to negotiate with leagues and conferences and all manner.
But somebody was arguing about why schools can't walk away from a grant of rights, about who's that attached to. The grant of rights is what a conference has. It's not with the network, it's with the members, correct? But the network is the one who supports the conference.
Well, the network is the one who bought the rights. So the conference and the network, it's all tied in together, which is why, and that ties into the first super chat we got from Arturo from $4.99. Thank you. Is there any validity to Clemson and FSU possibly joining the Big Ten? I don't think so at this time. What I think you're going to see from Florida State, and I don't think they really want to leave the ACC. They just want to help up the value, because while being in the SEC would be great, only 2 schools have really won the ACC in football for the last 30-plus years. You've got a couple of outliers, Maryland, who's not in the league anymore, pops up in there, or, Wake Forest, or I know Pitt did, but for the most part, look at the champions in football. It's Florida State and Clemson, all the way down the line. So I don't think that they are kind of like Utah in the Pac-12 right now.
Right.
There's not an impetus to leave the league that you control. Whatever league they go to, they're not going to control in any sport, really. And so you're not going to want to do that. But I do think that you're going to see Florida State with being the one who sticks their neck out, and then Clemson maybe to follow. And if Miami can get good at football again, them just making sure that there's some disruption and everybody knows how unhappy they are with their overall level of compensation. That is going to happen a lot, and this is the first step of the long game with them. And if it winds up with those teams in a different conference one day, then so be it. But you're talking about a 13-year grant of rights that they have to get off right right now, the ACC would lose their two best ratings drivers.
Why would ESPN want that to happen, Paul?
ESPN has a network that needs them, even though they're not going to be on the ACC network every week, that's going to need their, that Clemson-Syracuse game that winds up on the ACC network is the best game that the ACC network will have because that's the one that Clemson is on. That Florida State, Wake Forest game that winds up on the ACC network, that's a better game recently, but that's just the one that came to Florida State, Boston College, ACC Network last year. So that game, that's a huge ratings driver for them. ESPN has no impetus to all of a sudden give those two more money if they don't have to. And so this is really complicated. Plus, if the ACC schools could have broken the grant of rights, they probably... not just the ones that you're talking about, Florida State, North Carolina, and Clemson and Miami, maybe they all would have so they could say, hey, ESPN, we would like to go back to the table to make us more competitive because we've got a network we're on that you own, and let's renegotiate this. They probably would have done it a few years ago when the economy was better for these kind of things. So, yeah, I think that if they could, they would have, and they're going to keep trying to figure out ways out of it and renegotiate things, but I just don't see it being realistic because when you look at everything else across the board, when teams are leaving conferences, they've got a couple years left on their grant of rights. Not over a decade, which the ACC does not want to lose their big brand schools. They made this deal.
But neither does ESPN.
No.
They're not going to let them move somewhere where Fox is in control of a conference, are they?
Yeah, exactly.
Why would they let Florida State and Clemson go somewhere where they might lose that value?
Exactly. So, and that's the other thing is the ACC made this deal so that what happened to the Pac-12 and the Big 12 could not happen to them. And right now it can't. So I know that there's a lot of people on Twitter and social media that are saying that this is imminent and they have to tell them by August 15th because that's in the bylaws. But unless they're some sort of brilliant legal scholar, I don't know how any schools get out of it.
Here's a couple of more super chats. I think we have 3 or 4 more. Here's 3 I put down. From Garrett McClintock when we had Matt McChesney on. Matt is great. Hopefully he can fix O'Dean's hips and get an offer. I think that's a prospect that Colorado would like to be interested in, but he's going through some rehab. Jake Rice, this dude, Matt McChesney, is great. This is why West Virginia and Big 12 fans are pumped to have Colorado back despite the record. Aaron Gillespie, and I mentioned this to Jason, why would Nike put up with this limited exposure for Oregon if it is mainly a streaming deal and very little money or very little exposure on linear? It's a great question, Aaron. It's a great question. The only ones who could answer that basically are Oregon and perhaps also Nike. Is there one more that we didn't get to? I want to make sure we got them all.
Let me see. We got to Katie Rader. Thanks, guys. Keep rocking.
Katie, I sent you a number you were looking for, by the way, in the text message department on the other app that we have at 254-339-1122.
Chris says Arizona, Utah, and Arizona State would really help BYU regionally. Oh, absolutely.
No, yeah.
That'd be great for them. And I think that's all of them. We got them all. So.
Thank you very much. I also I saw a tweet, and I wish I would have known who did it, but I don't. I don't think I printed it, but I sent Garrett a bunch to a point where there's probably today 15 or 20, and we may have used 4. But one of them was what was Hey Kings, keep waiting, as they were talking about the mileage that UCF or the mileage that Brigham Young will have to fly to get to games this year, or even West Virginia. Hey Kings, that's kind of a Rachel Barbeau type term when she talks to men, when she talks to them. Just keep waiting, we're going to find you some partners. In other words, regionality, and that would be, of course, the deal. Arizona, if that was the case. Colorado is regionality. And, of course, the Denver market, but so much more on that. To change, Pac-12 is the weakest of the Power 5. That's obvious, but they still have Power 5 rights for 2 more years. Oregon has the money and the brand to stay afloat. Oregon and Washington are going to be okay. Now, I don't know where that is, and I know their hope most likely would be the Big Ten. Maybe if, in fact, Paul, the Pac-12 loses another member, whoever it is, Arizona, and maybe if it's enough where Arizona State and Utah kind of look the other way and start looking at a different part of the different backyard, or the pasture's greener on the other side. Sometimes it's not. Maybe if, in fact, that happens, then the Big Ten and Tony Petitti would say, okay, we don't want to be the ones. We've already crippled them with USC and UCLA, and we've heard this before. We don't want to completely, take their knees out. We'll let somebody else maybe do that, and then if that happens, we'll go get a couple of more.
Well, and look, if you get a 50% share, if you're Oregon and Washington, and what's the Big Ten in the first year of the deal? Is like 65 million, 60 million?
Yeah.
If you get a 50% share, you're at the numbers you wanted to be at when you were trying to stay in the Pac-12. So a 50% share is a better deal than you're getting now. Plus, it's almost all linear, save for a little bit of streaming.
Would they take, for those two who want more money and better unequal distribution for those, because like what the ACC is looking at, and that's what Oregon and Washington want if the Pac-12 stays together, you would think, would they be willing to do that, swallow their pride, and you would think the answer is whatever's best for them?
I think you got to throw pride in the wood chipper right now if you're the Pac-12. Because that's what's
anybody.
And that's what you've got. That's what's gotten you in this spot.
Yep.
A lot is pride, hubris. You had a chance to essentially end the Big 12 or merge with it, create a super conference of your own. Go toe to toe with the Big Ten and SEC on that, and scheduling alliance, whatever you want to do. You had an opportunity to go to TV partners and say, look, we've got these schools here and us. We're going to figure it out between the schools that are remaining in the Big 12. It would have been horrible for the four that are coming in, right? But we'll have 20 teams. We'll do kind of a 10 and 10 on either side. We'll have a cool scheduling model. This will be a new thing, and then that can be the Power Four, and then we'll see about the AAC and all that moving down the line. Now it keeps UCF and BYU and everybody on the sidelines of it, but you could have done something innovative.
Yep.
But instead you're like, oh, well, I don't want to go to Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah.
Have you been to Ames, Iowa? It's disgusting. And that's the attitude you had.
You didn't mean that.
No, I didn't mean that.
Yeah,
I'm just
I know.
playing
You're talking
a character.
about what they might think.
They're like, we don't want to have to go all the way over to Virginia, West Virginia. Well, USC and UCLA were like, no, we do. We're fine with it. We're going to go to the Big Ten.
Canelio, and I always, it's Canelio, because it's Knealio, and I've mentioned your name before, and you've always helped me with that, but Canelio, greeting from the South Plaza neighborhood in Midtown KCMO. Great show today, fellas. Thank you for the super chat that you sent our way. When we come back, last week we heard from Patrick Crakes, you heard from Jim Williams and others. Bob Thompson was traveling most of last week, said he could be available today, and he is next. And this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marco's Pizza, with 5 locations in the Waco area and the fastest growing pizza brand in the country, spreading their wings everywhere in cities perhaps close to you or the one you live in. And if that is the case, you could always go online and find some great discounts, great coupon numbers, codes for you to get pizza at even a better price, whether it's 1 topping or 3 topping or pepperoni magnifico or sausage magnifico or the pepperoni and sausage magnifico, pizza bowls, wings, salads, drinks. That's if you go online, and then, of course, you can go pick it up, and they deliver. They do to our studio here with one of the 5 locations in Waco. Bob Mock is the owner. There were no Marcos just a few years ago, and now there are 5, and 3 of them were added really in the last couple of years. They have locations in Robinson, which is on the southeast side of Waco. Locations as well in Hewitt and Woodway, where Midway High School is, which is on the southern to southwest part of Waco. And then China Spring in the northwest, and also in Belmead, which is on the east side of I-35 in the northeast part of Waco. Bob Mock, Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com.
Looking for power, performance, adventure, or luxury? We've got it all at Allen Samuels in Waco. Find amazing deals during the Make This the Summer sales event on new Ram trucks, Jeep SUVs, Chrysler sedans, minivans, or a sporty Dodge. At Allen Samuels, we're committed to taking care of our customers, and that means a large inventory on hand for you to choose from. Shop AllenSamuelsDCJ.com or come see us today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak and Paul Catalina.
Retired president, Fox Sports Networks, Big Ten Network co-founder, and of course the Thompson Sports Group LLC. He's become a great friend of the show. We have been fortunate with former media executives. Bob Thompson is with us on 365 Sports. Craig is out today, back with us next week. He's on vacation. Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak. I hope your trip was good, Bob. I know you've been traveling a little bit, and thank you for your time today. So we still don't know everything, but we know a little bit more today. What was your reaction to the Pac-12 getting something, whatever that something might have been?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on again. I'm traveling again because you can't hang around Phoenix when it's 118 degrees. So, we got some stuff today. Absolutely. Did we get everything? No, we got some broad strokes. Still have a lot of questions. I'm not sure we got an actual number, at least what a guarantee is. I've heard 20, 23, something like that. But, it's incentive laden. And so I'm interested in what's the retail fee going to be to consumers? What's the cut for the conference per sub? Are there different incentive levels, say for 500,000, a million, $1.5 million, whatever the number of the subs are? And what is that incentive? I haven't heard anything about term yet either. So those are some things that, an out. Is there an out if this goes poorly on both sides? So those are some things that I'd certainly like to know if I was a school or a chancellor, athletic director sitting in that meeting, because, how do you run a business if your if revenues are kind of uncertain? It's just, it's very difficult.
Bob, how do you, it's Apple's job to get the subscriptions up, and it's their job to push the Pac-12 as part of their overall thing. And you're the Pac-12, you're kind of limited in what you can do. Doesn't that make you nervous that now you're going to have to dedicate a little bit more resources to promoting where people can find you, that then even cuts into your bottom line a little bit more, not to mention the production costs of the Pac-12 network?
If I was the conference, I would certainly have some provision that called for a certain level of promotion, be it on, general consumer media that people are going to see, as opposed to just on Apple websites. You need to get this out and have everybody aware. And I'm not sure with the MLS that they did as good of a job as they could have. And so if I was the Pac-12, I would certainly be looking for that type of thing. As far as the Pac-12 networks go, there really wasn't a whole lot of discussion related to that or anything that I've seen come out. Are they the production arm, as the MLS is the production arm for the MLS package with Apple? So, and does the Pac-12 networks just kind of continue on as it is? I've kind of said all along, if they're really going to monetize this deal, the Pac-12 networks had to be part of that. And I'm not just talking as a production house. It's got to be something more than that. What do you do with that distribution? So, again, those are some unknowns that I think if I'm an athletic director or a chancellor or a president, those are things I'd certainly like to know before I say yay or nay on this deal.
Yeah, in fact, one of the comments we just had a question was, if the PAC deal is close, but the fine print says the PAC network has to produce all the games, which will cost millions, then in reality, then the money really isn't that close. Is that correct?
Well, if they have to produce them and aren't paid for that.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Then you're right. The money is not close.
Bob, if you're a president, they finally got Kleofkoff to give a number. And again, it's still not completely a finality deal, but they have now in front of them, whatever it might be. What do you think is reasonable, the incentives of subscription? What do you think is reasonable to add into, let's say, the base is 20 or 22 million to start with?
I'm really hesitant to go down that without having an idea of what the retail price is going to be.
Okay.
If it's $129, it's going to be tough. If it's, $30 or something like that, maybe it's, for the season, it's different. I think they priced the MLS, I believe, if you were an Apple TV Plus subscriber, it was $79 or something along those lines. If you bought the package outside of, if you were an Apple TV Plus subscriber, it was like $90 or $99, something like that. So there's a lot of different ways they can package it. I was hoping that maybe they just put it on Apple TV Plus and there wouldn't be a separate charge. So it's like the Saturday night baseball game, or Friday night, I guess it is. Their baseball games. I don't believe there's an extra charge. You get it like you get Ted Lasso. It's all part of the Apple TV Plus package. But clearly, it sounds like it's an incentive-laden package, and that usually implies there's a separate charge for it.
Yeah,
what's the MLS?
Major League Soccer.
I know, but is it like $49?
No, I think it's like it's more than
$79. Yeah, it's like $79, and then they discount it halfway through the season and things like that. So it's just like the MLB Extra Innings or NBA League Pass. There's a price when you start, and then it gets discounted as the season goes on. Okay. Yeah, I would expect they do the same thing here.
Yeah, Bob, I was personally, as a longtime NFL Sunday Ticket subscriber and someone who also has Apple TV, excited for the rumor, or that got down the road a little bit, that they were just going to put the NFL on as their part of it and say, look, this is so we can get the subscriptions up. But that, of course, didn't happen because of many other contractual layers. But Apple, they want things exactly their way, so it's not like the PAC has a lot of negotiating room here. do they, to go back and say, can we do better?
I would be surprised if there's a whole lot more leeway. I mean, Apple's, they didn't get to be where they are by, rolling over for people. So I think the deal is, sounds like to me, it's been, certainly they've had enough time to highly negotiate it. So I would be surprised if there's a ton of leeway. It's just, to me, the unanswered questions that need to be answered if I'm an AD or a president in order to make an informed decision. And it doesn't sound like they got everything they needed today.
Well, since you and I talked last, and I wasn't here last week, I missed all the fun with Colorado joining the Big 12 starting next year, and now that leads to, okay, that's an odd number. You wouldn't think they would stop at 13 once Texas and Oklahoma leave. Do you feel like there's a linchpin or the person who unties the shoe among Arizona? That's where you live, even though it's 118 and it's harder than the sun. Is there a possibility that if someone else goes, then the shoestring's untied and all hell breaks loose for the Pac-12?
My opinion is if one school goes, that's not the end of the Pac-12. If you get 4, excuse me, if it ends up being 4, then you've got a little more difficult situation for the Pac-12.
All right, Bob Thompson, clear your throat. I know. Hope you get some water.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I get it.
Bob, not on the Pac-12, but there have been all these rumors about Florida State and Clemson lately, which would seem to me to be problematic in that their grant of rights is 13 years. What do you think the real story is behind FSU and Clemson wanting to explore waters outside the ACC ocean?
Well, that's a pretty tough grant of rights, and it's also got issues with the bylaws as well. So they had two things against them. So I think it's kind of an opportunity for FSU and maybe Clemson to that extent as well to, maybe get some unequal revenue sharing situation on CFP playoff money, things like that. So I don't really see anybody challenging that unless you had a significant number grouping together. And it's just a tough setup. I mean, ESPN has made a huge commitment to that conference all the way down to starting a network for them. And they're not going to just lay down if, a few schools want some more money. The grant of rights could be challenged, but that still is not necessarily going to affect the contract. And ESPN's going to expect to have that contract fulfilled.
All right, Bob, I'm not trying to be dramatic here because we're not at Clicks and Views, but so you say that if they lose one more team, they're okay, the Pac-12, because that leaves 8 left, and it's still most likely Oregon, Washington, among others. But if it's more than one, if it is, for example, a couple of more, if it's 2, if it's 3 or 4 that leave the Pac-12, what happens?
Well, I think they'll certainly attempt to backfill with some G5s to keep the conference going. One of my concerns is if 4 go, then maybe some other conferences look at, well, we better make a move now, and then all the dominoes start going. And I think the Big Ten and the SEC and the ACC is everything kind of settled right now. But if there's a shift or a seismic move where somebody feels they need to move before they're moved on, that's when you can start seeing things happening. And by that point, I don't think anybody wants to be the entity that, quote, put the Pac-12, put a knife in the back of the Pac-12, and you wouldn't be doing that. It's kind of falling apart on its own. And so you might see some other moves, but I think they can still survive. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, predicting the demise of the Pac-12 conference, but they'd have to backfill, and you're going to at least have to backfill with 4 to get to 10.
Did you ever see that we would get to this specific point? Was there a time, we've spoken with you now for over a year since USC and UCLA, was there a time when you started to go, let's say you were a consultant for the conference, and I'm not saying that's true, but you have great experience, you've been there. Was there a time when you were like, man, this is not going to end well?
I was hopeful all the way up till yesterday that there'd be some sort of a deal, but you could kind of see the handwriting on the wall. mean, I said back in September, I was looking at some old comments that, if the Pac-12 goes all streaming, half the people will think they're the most brilliant, forward-thinking businessmen in collegiate sports, and the other half will think they're totally incompetent. And that's kind of what you're seeing right now. You've got some people who think it's a great thing, but you've got others who are like, this is not good. Streaming's not here yet. It's not time. Other people, by 2030, we're going to be so far ahead of everybody else. This is the best way to go. So, you're not going to be able to please everybody. And I'm surprised it got to this point, but the business changes and you got to roll with those changes or, you're going to be left behind a little bit.
So the addition of teams to the Big 12, Colorado gets a full share. ESPN, of course, has got the pro rata. Fox has explained that to me again because I want to make sure I don't just take something for granted. ESPN said, okay, we're going to match it up to a certain amount. How and where is Fox tied into anybody extra?
Well, my understanding is there's not a blanket ad for Fox. Fox has agreed for 2 teams to get to 14. Beyond that, there's a conversation that has to take place. ESPN, on the other hand, my understanding is they've agreed to any Power 5 would get full price from ESPN, and that's roughly $20 million per school because they have about 2/3 of the product and Fox has about 1/3. So it's a 2/3, 1/3 split, and it would be the same way adding people. So Fox isn't guaranteed; it doesn't have to fund beyond 14. My understanding with ESPN is slightly different, and they will fund beyond 14. Fox just does not, and it has never liked automatic ads. It's too much. You're leaving too much to the conference that you have no say in. So we'd at least always like to have some sort of discussion and as to who's coming in and what they're going to get paid or what we'd pay for.
And you would want inventory back or make sure that, if ESPN's like, hey, great, 16, and Fox is like, well, that's probably good for you. You might get more of those games. Fox is going to want to balance that out, correct?
Fox would expect that the selection process remains the same.
Okay.
All right, let's get to a point where people want to argue with you on Twitter, which, as you've learned, as you got involved in that people want to act like they know more than you do because, well, it's not like you were inside some of these meetings, discussions, contracts, and negotiations. Would you please explain, for those who don't think you know, that the conference, the members of the conference, and the network and the grant of rights and how that works?
All right, so the grant of rights is between the conference and the school pledges basically their home game inventory to the conference. The conference can then, therefore, take that grant of rights and be able to represent to the network that they, in fact, have those rights to sell. So the conference is not a party to the grant of rights. There's no place in any of the grant of rights where a network signs the grant of rights. Strictly between the members and the conference. And the television agreement is between the network and the conference. And it's kind of secured by those underlying rights that are put forth in the grant of rights. So that's how it works. And I know people don't want to believe me. Now I've become old and I'm out of touch. So I can tell you that has not changed in the last 10 years. So that's how they work.
Yeah, some fans were trying to tell Bob how Florida State would just walk out.
Look, Florida State is in a very long cell phone plan, and they can't just go, just to simplify it, for something you might deal with in your life. You're tired of T-Mobile, and you want to go to Verizon, but you signed a 4-year contract. Well, somebody's buying that out. Maybe it's Verizon if you're lucky, but it's not an easy process.
No.
It's very clear. If you look at the 2016 ACC amendment, it clearly states that this covers the new ESPN deal through 2036. It's the last sentence of the agreement. They're not going anywhere. Why would ESPN allow them to walk to the SEC where they got to pay them more money than they're paying them in the ACC? Why would they let them go to the Big Ten where they won't even have a shot at it? So there's really no incentive on ESPN's part to see a whole bunch of movement in the ACC. they've got a good deal there, and they would expect for it to be honored and to be, at least for some period of time, not changed. Maybe at some point down the road they do an extension, and then maybe that gives us some additional money sooner rather than later. But there's not going to be a scenario that I see where they're just going to, let people walk away.
Bob, there's an executive, I think, session, a Board of Regents session about to start for the University of Arizona. Of course, it's going to be what they discuss behind closed doors. Not sure if they'll bring that up, but I would think that most likely there'll be some sort of, hey, by the way, can we talk about what we learned today from the Pac-12? You are in that Phoenix area. Do you know anybody that's an Arizona alum that where you go play golf or who you hang with or whatever, and what kind of any of their reaction has been, or even Arizona State?
It's been, I get a lot of what's going on questions. Definitely the Arizona fans are probably more for going to the Big 12. I think they feel from a basketball standpoint it's better for them. I think they feel that maybe from a Pac-12 standpoint, they've never been given the proper respect from the conference. And so, on the ASU side, it's just kind of like, we're happy where we're at, but it would be nice to know where we're at and be nice to know how long we're going to be there.
All right. Thank you, man. Appreciate your time. I know you're traveling quite a bit. Stay out of that heat. And we appreciate your time. In the end, are we just kind of everybody trying to survive and tread water until there's some sort of a massive couple of conferences anyway in 5 to 10 or 8 years or whatever it might be?
The TV realignment always comes with the expiration of TV deals. So mark your calendars, 2029, 2028, starting in 2030, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Probably going to see some movement again.
Thank you, Bob. Man, it's great to have you on. Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports executive and president, and he has his own consulting. So last week I heard the segments with Patrick Crakes and also with Jim Williams, and then we hope you enjoyed the one with Bob Thompson, and it just happened to be today he's available where, in the end, what have we learned today, Paul? What have we actually, like today we were supposed to learn something. I think we did, and it just depends on how you want to read it, on what you want it to say, on what we actually learned.
I do think that this gives us a little bit less room for, well, this could be good, because I don't think that even the most ardent, everything that the Pac-12 has done is going according to plan. People would say that hearing your TV deal for the first time on August 1st and saying that, oh, you can beat the Big 12,
right?
If you sell a bunch of subscriptions, I don't know. I like the door-to-door sales aspect of this for the Pac-12 would really upset me,
Yep.
And things are presented a certain way. If we get this many subscribers, then it can be up that. Well, how much is that? And reportedly, it would have to be 10 million subscribers if they're at $1 a subscriber to get to that number. And that's just a lot. That's a lot to get to.
Yeah, JG Neolardo, today I learned about, explained to me like I'm 5 on Reddit. So, yeah. From Chris to Craig, who's out until next week, but we learned that 13 months were wasted by George Kliavkoff with no real options ever available.
Let me back up.
Kyle Visser, you learn commercials are a luxury and allows bathroom breaks.
Yes.
We blew out.
Believe me, we know.
Yeah.
We know. I will stick up for George Kliavkoff in this one part of it. He's not the one who gets to make the decision on the television deal. He is charged with negotiating it, and he can only negotiate with the strengths that he has. What the Pac-12 Executive Committee, look, George Kliavkoff is certainly at fault for kind of falling into this circle of things at the Pac-12. And you go to work for somewhere and you kind of fall into their company line a little bit before you realize, like, oh, this might not be good, because you're at a job, you've hired you're George Kliavkoff, you're making just a buttload of money. And by the way, we have some Hunter Deckers news that we have to get to in a second.
What?
Oh, yeah. But there are there were 10, now there's 9. There were 10 presidents that were giving him the parameters. And they all kind of said, this is what we need to see when you come back to us. And clearly until today, he didn't have anything close to that. And he still doesn't, except for the fact that today was the point of like, well, tell us what we actually do have on the table.
Right.
Because it's not like there were no offers on the table, but there was no offer that he brought to the conference until today. So today, and that's the other thing that's mind-blowing.
And do you think unless they told him this would never have happened today, right? And finally they just said, no, we're pushing you off the point.
Because he was, that was there's going to be more people at the table now, so that can be better. Well, there's more people all of a sudden showing up because they think they get you on the cheap. And that is becoming more and more evident by the day. So we'll see.
All right, so let's do Hunter Deckers, if you don't mind. John McLean, Hall of Fame columnist, in about 8 to 10 minutes, but let's update you on a couple of different things when it comes to college football.
Iowa State quarterback Hunter Deckers is accused of placing wagers on Iowa State sports, including a 2021 football game.
Jesus.
He did not play in that game. But he's accused of placing 26 wagers on ISU sporting events, including the 2021 game against Oklahoma State when he was a sophomore backup quarterback. The complaint alleges he's charged with tampering with records related to the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigations probe into sports gambling. The complaint alleges the DraftKings account controlled by Deckers completed approximately 366 mobile online sports wagers totaling over $2,799, which maybe that's over $2,799 could mean $2,800, but I think that maybe just reading it how I am, that maybe that's the threshold of misdemeanor to felony or whatever you want to do.
So he's done. You would think. Now remember Iowa State, we heard about this story, and Craig even mentioned about how do you predict them, not just if you don't know about football talent, depth, whatever, but because of what else could happen based on their investigation into whatever was going on with gambling.
Well, J.J. Cole becomes the starter right now, and for Iowa State, and Hunter Deckers, awaits whatever is coming to him.
Wow.
We did not get a lot of Iowa State at media days. I think this is partially why. In that,
they were not around.
They were not around as much, and I think part of it is that, like, if you just know that you can't answer questions. Not that you're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
I've never found Matt Campbell to be evasive, but if you can't answer questions and it's going to make you look evasive, then you might as well just do the minimum that you're required to do and move on. I'm not trying to take up for Iowa State here anyway, but. I do think that's probably why. And because they're pretty forthright when it comes to things before. And Iowa and Iowa State, those two universities, the state of Iowa got on this really fast. This will not be the last thing we hear about college athletes getting suspended. So, I'm sure if you're a rival of Iowa State, you can chuckle right now. But the bottom line is, this wheel is going to spin really fast, and it's coming for somebody at your school. And you better hope it's not someone who matters as much as Hunter Deckers does to
starting
Iowa State.
Quarterback, yeah.
Because it's going to happen. Because gambling, I don't have to go see a guy that sits in the back booth at the bar and be like, hey, I got 75 on Oklahoma State tonight to cover. I don't have to do that anymore. In most of the states in this country now, I can go on my phone and quickly make a wager.
All right, Garrett, let's try to throw some things, not out, but UCF. I don't know if I have a couple of the tweets. I sent you one from Christian C.A. by C.A. Simmons. UCF received a commitment from a 4-star wide receiver, Rick Darius Farmer, who is their 6th, what you would call 4-star or better commitment. It is their... Let's see. So Christian Simmons are saying they now have a 4-star receiver. This is the class of 2024, a 4-star running back, a 4-star tight end, and a 4-star interior offensive lineman, not to mention another 4-star running back and quarterback for the class of 2025. Their recruiting has obviously taken off, and even Gus Malzahn and others discussed that with us at Big 12 Media Day. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot, Garrett. Do you have the receipts? So
yes.
I wasn't around when the fun happened last week, and that's fine. But there were a few people that kind of came at us or some things we discussed a little aggressively during this courtship of Colorado and whoever else by the Big 12 or vice versa. So there's just a couple of them that I want to. This is from Buffman, Paul. We're not going to your Group of 5 conference. We're sorry. All right? Well, welcome to the Big 12, young man. Here's another one from, I think this one might be from the replay. No, as a CU alum and Buff Club, stay in the Pac-12. Only a fool would join the Truck Stop Conference, which is something that became only G5 teams want to join. All the top brands have left. UT, Oklahoma, A&M, Missouri, Nebraska. As a CU alum, I think you should hop on the CSU bandwagon. This guy's not going to be happy.
No.
And I think there was one more. I'm not sure if I...
that was the only ones I had.
Okay, yeah, that's... Now, how about Texas Special Teams Coordinator Jeff Banks, the pole monkey, right?
Pole monkey, no.
What did I say?
You said pole monkey. Pole assassin is his girlfriend.
Oh, that's right.
She
and has a monkey. All right. No, sorry, Jeff, you're not the pole monkey. I remember that story, Halloween, somebody got bit. So Brett McMurphy had this out there. God, that was me at peak right there. Saying that, asked about when UT visits Alabama in Tuscaloosa, just another road game. Did I lose you?
Yes. Pole monkey.
Let's get back on track.
I can't. Just ignore me. Put the camera on him.
Hold on. Just another road game, just as hard in Kansas and Iowa State as it's going to be in Tuscaloosa. Hey, that's a compliment to Lawrence and also to Ames. I'm doing the show like I did last Monday right now by myself. What was wrong with that? I mean, it all kind of ties together, right?
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah, yes. It just sounds like a juvenile insult, like 13-year-olds would yell at each
because
other.
I called him the pole monkey.
Yeah,
okay.
no.
All right.
No. Gosh.
Everybody is having fun with this. Paul is gone, blushing now. Oh, Lord. Russell, please say Texas instead of UT because the real UT, Tennessee, also visits Tuscaloosa this year. Russell, thank you for that. We appreciate the clarification. Everybody with the laughing emoji. How to say hi to May Ann? I think it's supposed to be Marianne, but she spelled it M-A-Y-Y. She is a Jackson State. Like, she should run your campaign if you want to get elected because she loves Jackson State. Paul, your nickname now, because of what I said, is Pole Monkey.
Manny
Palazzo, if George K. Kliavkov thought he had the best available offer he could get, he needed to get people together and lay it all out. And then the question is, why today? Because I think finally everyone said, no, we're not going to let this go past August the 1st. No, Brett, I've not started comedy in my career.
The problem is you have to want to do it on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the hard thing.
Laugh out loud, the real UT, Tennessee can disappear. Oh, we got them going. Tennessee can disappear. And I lost the rest of that tweet. Off the map, and no one would know. They were pretty damn good last year, probably better than Texas. But there is that. Now that's going to have that. Who's the UT, Texas, Tennessee, both of us different shade of orange and everything. From Kyle Visser, the working man, the UT special teams coach dates a stripper whose nickname is a pole assassin. Oh, he's telling somebody else why I even got to the pole monkey part of it. Anyway, outlaw of college football. Say it loud, say it proud. 365 Sports. Pole monkey. I really didn't. I thought I was saying the right thing there when I said that. All right, here's a picture of a Baylor men's basketball reunion. This is what every college probably program does. It seems like Baylor has this. Paul, I'm going to question you. I need you to go left to right. You have your glasses off?
Yeah, hold on.
Because you got to get your eyes checked. All right, these are former Baylor men's basketball guys. Some in the NBA, some have been in Europe or the NBA, and one of them is on staff, who's the short guy on the right. Go.
Okay, I don't know who that is on the left. It's escaping me, but Ish Wainwright.
Is that the long three-point shooter stud from back when I started?
Is that Lace Dunn?
I don't know.
That Lace. Okay, there you go.
I don't know if that is or not. I just saw the beard. I don't know who that is.
Ish Wainwright,
who's now still in the NBA, and look at his broad shoulders, man.
Soon-to-be superstar Davion Mitchell, Jared Butler, Freddie Gillespie's in the back there. King McClure, friend of the show, right there. I need to look a little closer. Corey Jefferson is behind them.
Yep.
And then is that? I can't see with his hand over his face.
Tall drink of water.
Yes.
All right. Then you have. Obviously,
Torian Prince is on the far right. Tweety Carter's in there. I'm missing these two in the middle, and I just need to look
at it. Is one of those Melvin Hunt? Melvin Hunt might be on the far left. He's one of those that's coaching.
Next to TP.
Yeah.
And then...
No. Melvin Hunt might either be all the way to the left, but that's a family reunion video of men's basketball. I bet we probably missed two of them or three of them.
Perry Jones? Is that Perry?
Perry Jones?
I don't recognize him with long hair.
Yeah, I don't either.
I haven't seen him in a long time.
All right, so there you go. That's not Isaiah Austin for sure, so we don't know.
No.
And then finally this. Notre Dame signed a $10 million Under Armour agreement, the richest apparel deal in athletics, college athletics. Who would you say would be right underneath of them, 4 or 5 schools with the best apparel deal in college athletics?
Oregon.
Oregon's not on here. This is a range of $8 to $10 million a year. I don't know if that means Oregon's.
Notre Dame's got a new one.
Notre Dame's the one I just mentioned. They're like a little above $10 million annually. This is cash and gear.
Georgia?
Nope.
Alabama?
No.
A&M?
No.
Florida State?
No.
I mean, they were like this third Nike school.
Yep. I'll give it to them.
Okay.
Texas.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Kansas men's basketball with Adidas.
Yeah.
Louisville, Adidas. Mm-hmm. Had a flight to Orlando with a guy who's from Louisville. Ohio State, Nike. Nebraska, Adidas. And Michigan, Nike. All the schools believed to be in
Jordan
that range.
brand with Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a little bit of that. And there are others that, of course, that have good deals.
FSU's got to get back to the table with Nike. We were there at the beginning, man.
Oh. Where's it at?
It's behind you right here. It's right straight behind.
In the middle. That's I got back from Florida, and on my front porch was a big box, and that's a Matt Rule side Nebraska helmet. We won't keep all them. We try to move them around a little bit, but I wanted to show that off, and thanks to Coach Rule for sending that. They've opened up their workouts, and we appreciate him for that. That's that brand new one with the slices like a lot of them have. That's just pretty cool.
A lot of white helmets up there. Yeah.
Houston over here in the corner. All right, finally, the ACC media poll. Garrett? None of this surprises me. There's a couple of schools probably higher than I thought. The ACC media poll with Clemson, not overwhelming, but almost maybe 40% higher first-place votes in parentheses. Florida State, North Carolina with Drake May, right? North Carolina State and Miami. Those are the top 5, and then on down the list of 1 through 14. Paul, that kind of meet your expectations there?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the dark horse to me to watch out for this year is Louisville, how quickly they can turn it around with Jeff Brom. I think their quarterback might be, but watch out for Duke and Riley Leonard and Mike Elko.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to shake things up. They beat the absolute brakes off of Miami last year, if you remember. And I don't know how much better Miami's going to be. I think they will be better. I think it just stands to reason, but I don't know if they're quite there yet. So we'll see. I think that this is going to be about the 3 teams at the top for most of the year, though.
Yeah.
I think
and all
that's
3
what
of
this
them.
Conference, yeah.
We know that Clemson has national championship aspirations. Florida State, I've told you that. I kind of have them playing in the semifinals, whether that's true or not. But and then next, North Carolina because of their star quarterback, and we know how the other teams are sneaky good. By the way, virtual board meetings are one of the worst things ever invented when it comes to journalism. Jason Scheer mentioning that. They had 500 people streaming on the site. We just had somebody, Craig Wall, announce the executive session was to discuss the assignment of the executive director. No mention of discussion, at least of the grant of rights or movement. Can they still discuss that in the meeting? I'm not real good about
Yeah, no idea. Connor
They could
Johnson
still be
mentions
brought up.
they shut off the live stream, so they're probably discussing something now that they're not going to vote on.
Yeah, and you can't vote unless it's public.
Yeah,
so you can discuss it, but you cannot vote.
That means they're probably not going to. I wouldn't think they'd vote today anyway, because now the whole process from President Robbins was we see numbers, then we talk about options. So now they've seen the numbers, and now they have to talk about options. So I still think that while this could be really fast like Colorado's was, I still think you got a couple days in here because there's some tug of war when it goes on with some of this stuff. So,
a couple of the notes on the chat. John McLean coming around the corner. The Apple guarantee is $15 million per team, not 20. Everything more is based on subscriptions sold. What will they do in year 2? No one left to sell to. That's from Provo Cougar fan. We appreciate your comments. Also, there's a lot of things going on with, I don't know why people are all hung up on me, Poll Monkey. I don't understand it. I'm having fun with it, though. We appreciate a lot of you. Wouldn't it be the poll, the monkey poll, not the media poll?
Yeah. Yeah. But Pole Assassin had a monkey that bit a kid that was trick-or-treating.
No, the Pole Assassin had a girlfriend.
No, Pole Assassin was the girlfriend. That was her stripper name. And during trick-or-treating, her monkey got loose and bit someone, which, not a great Halloween.
Connor Johnson, is it true? Whoa, just came up with, is it true that Arizona has to vote publicly for anything? Yes, I'm almost, whoa. Charles Barkley.
Barkey.
No. Paul, you just ruined it.
Okay.
Charles Barkey with a $200 super chat. My goodness, sir. Thank you. Here is to Utah coming to the Big 12. See you all in Waco, Old Southwest Conference fan, Texan living in Utah. Sir, thank you very much, and everybody who's been a part of that. We just read that. We got to break John McLean, Hall of Fame columnist, and then also Paul's Top 5, the Top 5 Poll Monkey. All that and more, 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans. I'm going to get serious here for a second. I hope that, when I promote what Cheyenne and Ashley and also what Carol do is they have a 48-foot walk-in humidor that is loaded with cigars. And I went in there today to get myself some cigars from when I play golf this weekend. But I got to tell you a story. Cheyenne is one of those who works there. You know the story about my oldest brother, Robert. He's been battling prostate cancer, and it's in his bones. And I've told that story, and God, it was great to see him and my brothers this past week. But when I was there last week before I left town, Cheyenne, I've told her the story. And she said, here, take this to him. It was a bag, and it was of THC. Sell it. It's legal and everything else. So I I had it on my checked luggage. I didn't know if you could do that or not, marijuana, gummies, etc. But I took this. It's called For Bad Days. And it's a THC gummy. And like the first day there, I got there sometime a little bit after 2 o'clock Eastern on Thursday. And my brother Robert had kind of a harder day on Friday because we had gone out in the water and the waves and all that. And he was sore as hell. He was achy. He took one of those gummies and everything was fine. It's for bad days. That's what it's called. It's for patients who are struggling with cancer and much, much more. And he saw his doctor yesterday. He was supposed to have chemo treatment. They decided to push that back a little bit. He asked his doctor about it, the gummies. His doctor said, you do whatever it makes you feel good. As far as legal, it's THC. And I went by there today and got even more. I'm going to send that to him. It's Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center in between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McLean. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at sportsradio610.com.
By the way, in fact, if you drove anywhere around or near Baylor today, they went through what they call a joint active threat training exercise with multiple law enforcement agencies going through the alert of if, in fact, there's something going on campus, an active shooter, whatever it could be, a chase, missing person. So they've done that the last couple of days at the Baylor campus, and so that's good because, you know, you always wonder, well, what could they do differently in learning from some of the experiences that have been awful, tragic in the past. We're now joined by Hall of Fame columnist John McLean. John, NFL camps are open. I got to tell you, I wasn't paying attention to exactly why, but you were praising Mrs. McNair in one of your timelines, at least the one that popped up to me. What's going on with that?
Well, I did that a lot because she's had health issues and she's been able to come to practice, and that's a big deal. And but what everybody used to be talking about is Justin Verlander versus Max Scherzer. Astros at one point, 12 Rangers by 6.5. Now it's a half. Both teams have made major moves. It's just a shame they only have 3 games left in Arlington in September.
Is there any way they make this trade if the Rangers had not gone after Scherzer?
Well, their top 3 pitchers are not pitching worth a damn. Their best pitcher is J.P. France, a 28-year-old rookie who didn't even figure into the equation in spring training. So they were desperate for another starter. Lance McCullers Jr. never pitched. Luis Garcia pitched 6 games. Tommy John surgery. Jose Kitty missed 3 months. He's back. So they have Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve back. They missed a total combined of about 4 months. They have Jose Kitty back, and they have Verlander back, and they're hoping that Verlander coming back will have a positive effect on Framber Valdez, who has an ERA of 9 since the All-Star break, and Christian Javier and Hunter Brown, who've been up and down like a roller coaster.
John, what do you think about the haul that they had to send to the Mets? Especially, I mean, it's a lot of people, but they're really getting Verlander on the cheap since the Mets are picking up most of his contract.
Yeah, he signed a 2-year deal for $86.2 million. Now he'd be 40 and 41. In 42, if he pitches 140 innings next season, he gets $35 million in 2025. So he isn't leaving. He'll finish his career here unless they trade him. And he won Cy Young Award last year. 6-5 with 3.15 ERA. This year, his ERA on the last 7 starts is 1.49. Scherzer's ERA is over 4, but he's got a better record. So I think it's great. You know, those guys have been teammates twice in Detroit and with the Mets, and both times they've been traded. So it's going to be exciting. To answer your question, yes. They were desperate for a starting pitcher because they're so close to first. They've won the last 2 series against the Rangers in Arlington and in Houston. And, boy, it is sure created a buzz. You know, how many times have we seen the Astros and the Rangers both World Series contenders at the same time? I don't think ever.
There was a time when Houston was getting better, when they went through their, like, nothing but prospects, and they weren't very good back when Texas was really good, and Houston made a run, but the Rangers owned them. It was like owned them. And now, of course, it has flipped. And to me, John, all of this changed when Chapman gave up the 3-run homer to McCormick when the Rangers were winning. It was in the 7th inning. I think they had like a 2 or 3 game lead. To me, that kind of flipped everything. And now it looks like it's a matter of time to me, no matter the trades, where Houston just takes over because they're getting guys back.
Despite that home run, I think Chapman was a great trade for the Rangers. I really like the deals they've made. And everybody knows they got one of the best managers in baseball history. They got it going on. The Astros also, they have older players like Bregman, and I say older. Altuve's the oldest, 33. But both of them's contracts up after next season. Kyle Tucker's season after that. And so they've been to the American League Championship Series 6 consecutive years. It's been to 4 World Series and won 2. And right now, the best team in the American League is Baltimore. And the Orioles are new. And nobody knows how they're going to respond to the dog days of August and how they'd respond if they get in the playoffs, because so much of their talent is young in the first 3 seasons. So it's a good time to go for it for the Rangers and for the Astros. I just wish they had more games together, and that's the only other thing. Hopefully, they will play in the playoffs.
Oh, John, I think I would cancel all my plans if there was Verlander versus Scherzer, especially in a clincher for a playoff.
Wouldn't that be great if that happened? By the way, the 2 prospects the Astros gave up, Drew Gilbert, who was the number 1 pick last year, and Clifford, who was the 11th rounder last year. Both Clifford's at 11A. I mean, he's at high A ball in Asheville, North Carolina. Drew Gilbert's in AA at Corpus Christi. And their outfield's set. They got Alvarez in left, Jasmine McCormick center, and they got Kyle Tucker in right. So it would have been hard for those guys to come up. So I don't mind giving up untested players for established players, especially when you're trying to go all in as the Rangers and the Astros have done. The best thing about the Rangers, they got great hitting. The Astros have had inconsistent hitting, and the Rangers are young. So I really like everything the Rangers have done. to try to get back into contention.
And John, look, the Angels have made some moves too to try to get back in there, so they could be a thorn in the side of these two teams if they get hot again, especially if Mike Trout comes back and can produce.
I feel bad for the Rangers. For the Angels owner Artie Moreno. He gave Trout over $400 million. Guys hurt every year. He gave Anthony Rendon $236 million to leave the Nationals. He's been hurt most of his 3 years there. And yet, I remember 2 years ago, every draft choice they had were pitchers. And right now, they're doing these deals trying to show Ohtani, man, we're doing everything we can to win. We want you back. And I'm glad they didn't trade him, even though Astro fans would say the opposite. They'd love for him to be gone. And the Mariners, who were swept by the Astros last year, but it was very competitive. Every team in this division has a chance to get in the playoffs other than the A's.
John, what has been the reaction tonight? Just had somebody asking. You may have said this earlier. Outfielder Drew Gilbert's their top prospect based on MajorLeagueBaseball.com, and also minor league outfielder Ryan Clifford is headed there. He's a pretty good player too. You do this, right? You have prospects, which means they haven't done it yet. The Rangers have done this to bring in somebody that might be the juice to be the difference in 2 or 3 games in the end in the postseason.
They were the first and the fourth rated prospects in the Astros organization, and Gilbert was 65th out of the major league top 100 minor leaguers. Clifford's not in there, but you got to give to get. And I'll tell you, people here are happy, and if Drew Gilbert or Ryan Clifford end up in the Hall of Fame, I think, and that you see a lot of times. There's a lot of great players who were included in deals like that. Some that worked, some that didn't. But I don't hear anybody here among the fans or the media complaining about this deal, because the last 3 days have been saying, get Verlander back, get him back, get him back.
Yeah, you're right about that. All right.
And we get back Kate Upton.
No.
Everybody wins in
there you
Houston
go.
in that scenario.
So what is the Hackett with the Jets now and Sean Payton calling him out and criticizing him? Hackett today, or I think it was today or yesterday, saying that he broke the code among coaches. What was Sean Payton's? Is he just trying to do everything he can to regain the confidence of Russell Wilson?
No, I think he shot his mouth off in a classless manner. People are trying to act like he did it for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's not a kid. If you want to praise him, just say, hey, what happened here last year wasn't his fault. He threw his general manager and his team president, who's part of the ownership group, under the bus as well. They can't like that. I'll guarantee you he regrets doing that, because he crossed the line. And even though Hackett wasn't ready to be a head coach, and he may never be, and he didn't call the plays in Green Bay, Matt LaFleur called the plays with big input from Rodgers, and I'll guarantee you, even though he is the offensive coordinator and play caller for the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is going to have a big role. I can't wait till that 5th game when the Jets host the Broncos. Sean Payton's already saying he's over. He's not going to talk about it. Well, what did he think? They were going to ignore something like that? I thought it was totally asinine.
John, thank you so much for your time as always.
Thank you, guys. Second Bear.
Hall of Fame columnist John McLean. Tuesdays he's been out and about on a vacation for a couple of weeks, and Hall of Fame columnist with us, 610 in Houston. Patrick Crates, when asked this question from somebody on Twitter, so Apple only gets the sports rights when nobody else wants them. Patrick, no streamer has won an auction for sports media rights. Rather, they take what established system doesn't want or need, non-traditional streamers from companies that make economics outside of media have learned they don't have to bid against themselves to win the rights.
Yep. So
Great point.
If Apple's the deal on the table, that means ESPN and Fox are out.
And then on the Arizona Board of Regents, they immediately convened into an executive session. Everything went dark on the screen, no public discussion, all private. They will adjourn at the end of whenever it is, the executive session. And as Connor said earlier, yes, you have to be, if you're going to vote on anything, you have to do it publicly. So this may not even get to realignment or get to the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or the whatever TV deal. Paul Catalina's top 5 is next.
Unite Private Networks. They are our new internet provider, and it has been fantastic. fantastic. They are so good. Who are they? They are a high bandwidth provider, fiber-based communications for businesses. Look, you can't get Unite Private Networks at your house. I'm sorry, it's not what they do. But look, we experience this every time that we would go off the air and get the spinning wheel of buffering doom. That's lost revenue for us. If you go off line at your business, that's lost revenue for you. And UPN provides the best internet that you can find in that fiber-based network. Look, it's your network. We were sharing a network with everybody in this neighborhood here in East Waco, and that was not good for us because sometimes somebody would be doing something. It probably wasn't good. Here's the other thing. It probably wasn't good for them either, in that we're slowing down. They're probably slowing down. You've got two businesses here on East Waco that are losing money because the internet got slower. Well, what do? White glove customer experience. So if you're going to go, if you have a problem, which we have it, and they don't have that much, you're going to find out in about 20 minutes maximum what the problem is, and they're going to get it fixed. You call right up, goes right to them. You're not going to have to sit on hold. I spent so much time on hold with our previous provider. 98% customer retention, 98% customer satisfaction, 98% on-time installation. They own 100% of the fiber optic network. They're not sharing lines with anyone at all. Custom design solutions. So whatever you need to make your business work at the fastest experience possible, they can do that for you. And dedicated account team. So again, when you go and call, you're not calling and getting, Fred one day and Janice the next and all that on. You're going to call and you're going to get one person right to you, whatever you need. And we were having a lot of problems here. And then an angel named Ace came into the studio one day and said, "Hey, can we talk about your internet?" And he started telling me about all the different things that Unite Private Networks does. And if you're here in Waco, now look, they're in 21 or 22 other markets around the country, over 75 on net and 180,000 near net buildings on their loop. So they've got tons and tons of different people, government offices, schools, you name it. It's a business. They've got that at Unite Private Networks around the country. Go to uniteprivatenetworks.com, or if you're local here in Waco, call Ace 254-803-7070. That's uniteprivatenetworks.com.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com. Samantha Duvall joins us. She's the marketing director who knows all of the specials and also the events coming up. And thank you very much, as always, for your time. So all of these holidays are over. We've hit the meat of, literally, of the summer. And your thoughts about as you hit the month of August and into football season, Samantha?
Football season's right around the corner, so that means it's perfect time for tailgating. The best time to grab our hamburger patties is right now through the end of July. We still have our sale going on with our regular patties and our jalapeno and cheese patties. They're $12 a package, so that's 4 patties to a package. It's perfect for the time for football. gather all your family around. That way you can grill it up.
Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu and how they age it as well. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 realignment hangups for the remaining schools in the Pac-12. I left Arizona out of this because I think that they're about to fix their hang-up. I mean, if you're asking me what I think is going to happen, I think Arizona's going to be making an announcement here soon. I don't know that. I just think it. There's a difference.
Yeah, because whoever, if they come, it's not a surprise. If they don't come, it might be more of a surprise. But anyone after them will be,
Yeah. Right now, it's kind of like Bigfoot. Like, if you believe in Bigfoot, you don't know that there's Bigfoot. You just think that there's Bigfoot. I think that they're coming, but I don't know that. And until there's a dead Sasquatch on my doorstep, I won't know.
I don't know if anyone's bad enough to kill Bigfoot unless it's
I mean, he'd have to, like,
Chad
that's the thing.
McChesney.
He just have to collapse.
Or the pole monkey.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
An old Sasquatch just dies.
Yeah.
Anyway, number 5, Stanford and Cal. Who are you in the modern era of college football? What do you want?
No, it's who are you, but who do you want to be?
Yeah, who do you want to be? And Stanford is a school that athletically has put a lot of resources into a lot of things for a long time. I mean, they've always won the Learfield Directors Cup, whatever, the Sears Cup, whatever it's been. They've won that for a long time. Many times. But when it comes to football and being a media presence in football, which becomes an important thing, who do you want to be and who can you be? Cal, same thing, smaller endowment, obviously. I mean, nobody has what Stanford's got in the kitty educationally, but who are you? Like, what is your identity as a modern athletic program and a modern college football program?
If they voted on campus of these 2 schools, and I don't know the answer, and I'm not trying to be flippant, but if they took a vote on these 2 campuses, if either one of the football programs was to no longer be a part of a Power 5, and I may be wrong for asking this, what would the vote be on who cares or not?
Yeah,
I may be completely wrong on that, but I get that impression.
But it's fair to ask the question based on.
I mean, Sean Elway.
When you look at the stadium, which is supposed to be full of students, it's not right now. So who is that? Just because they've not been winning, or is that because the student body is kids who are not into it as much, which is fine. Look, Stanford, I'm not even going to get into Cal. Stanford has geniuses from around the world that are coming to that campus. So if you're from, Norway and you decide to go to Stanford, you either are going to pick up football or you're not, and there's a good chance that maybe you don't. So it's just one of those things. They're in such a unique position when it comes to this. Number 4, Oregon and Washington. Is it worth it to even ask about the Big 12 if they just have to wait on the Big 10? Because I think it was Pat Crakes or Jim Williams who mentioned this. Pat Crakes who mentioned this. Look, the Big 12 would love to have Oregon and Washington just as brands, but is it worth the Big 12's time to get in that business if you know they're just going to wait to jump out?
Mentioned that too.
Yeah. So that's such a weird dynamic. And so do you have to take your medicine for a little bit in the Pac-12, hope they expand with some teams that help you out a little bit in the regard, take the all streaming deal and ride it out? That just seems kind of rough for 2 huge brands that are going to contend the next few years for college football playoff spots. So that's a weird thing. Everybody's in a weird spot. Really weird spot when it comes to it. Number 3, Arizona State. Does this hurt your SoCal student base? It's not really that much of a problem for USC and UCLA because they're in Southern California. But Arizona State, I think their plan was to be the SoCal school of the Pac-12 now that there was no SoCal school because they've got 20,000 plus students that are from Southern California. Well, if they're not going to be playing teams, does it hurt you? I don't think it does. I think the draw of Arizona State is Arizona State, and most of them, won't be bothered by who they're playing in sports, but you do have to consider it.
Yeah, I mean, that drives me crazy because my dad went there to get his master's degree. I lived there when I was very young. And, they got some tradition, Charlie Taylor, among others, Jake Plummer. And it drives me crazy that they can be more than they are. To me, they're a sleeping giant.
Well, if I did a top 5 of who does less with more, obviously the top 4 would be Texas A&M, but they just have for a long time. And I've suffered that in my family a little bit. But Arizona State, I think, is not hitting their full potential.
Oh, there's an agreement or disagreement about the campus, and it's a beautiful campus in every way.
I ran into Phil Snow the other day at the grocery store, and he was obviously coach there. And I asked him real quick. I said, Coach, do you think Arizona State is missing on their potential? He said, every day. He said, it's just like, he's like, they could be a lot. Because when he was there, they beat Nebraska.
No, they shut out Nebraska after they'd won 2 national titles.
Yeah, so they can do things at Arizona State. Number 2, Utah. Can they coexist with BYU? They were in a conference together before.
Sure, they can.
I think there's
Auburn and Alabama can coexist.
I just think there's some bad blood that's beyond. We don't like you in sports.
Yeah.
Because it's administrative stuff. There's one school that's a state school, one school that's a religious school.
Yeah.
There's a dividing line there. They just didn't like dealing with each other. I think they can. It's right now they have to swallow that pill that they would have to. That's the thing. And you heard Scott Mitchell early in the show. If you guys were not around for that interview, go back. And he said, it's a weird thing where there's just this tension where there's enough people who would say, I really just don't want to be in the conference with BYU. And that might slow them up. And number 1, if you're Oregon State and Wazoo, what options do you have? Yeah. You have to be the champions of keeping it together. And this is very similar to the position that Iowa State, Kansas State, and Baylor were put in when the Big 12 was breaking up the first time.
Multiple times.
But the A&M, Nebraska, Colorado, Missouri couple of years, when A&M and Colorado left, Iowa State, and I don't know if Kansas was in this a little bit, but it was Iowa State, Baylor, and Kansas State were really in tough spots because they were just not as attractive to everyone else, right? And at least on the surface. And they were trying to protect their interests, which is why it was we're going to sue A&M. And then the courts are like, you can't sue A&M. But it slowed them up enough to where
it absolutely delayed it and gave them a chance. And
they gave them about 2 weeks.
Worked.
They needed 2 weeks. That's all they needed.
No matter how many people got pissed off at Ken Starr, it worked.
They needed 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's all they needed was 2 weeks to make sure they get everything together. And they did it. I don't know if Oregon State and Washington State have those 2 weeks. That's going to be a weird thing for them.
And I
feel for them, especially given what they're committing to football right now.
Yep.
That they're really behind it.
Yep.
That it's really unfortunate that you're at the mercy of all these other people.
Yeah, it sucks for them.
Yeah.
It really, really does. Hayden Maxwell, Paul, why not go ahead and add them temp? If you're about to add ACC schools around the same time,
add ACC
they want
schools,
to leave. I know. Okay. That's a super chat. Thank you. And again, thanks to Charles for the $200 super chat, but all the other ones we had today and a bunch of them we did have today. And thank you for the comments with what we're doing. The Arizona Board of Regents, again, they've convened. They're still behind closed doors, the executive session. A couple of you asked if we would stay on the air while that continued. That could go for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then again, it could be for about 25 or 30 minutes. So we'll be in touch. Whatever happens tonight, if anything at all, we'll be back with more information and guests tomorrow.
I'd have to get a permission slip signed.
Aren't you going to this thing?
Yeah, but I have a permission slip for that thing. I don't have a permission slip for anything else. It's just how it works. Guess what I had to do today? To buy 2 tickets to damn Barbie. That's what I had to do today.
So I thought me popping off with my ADHD with Pole Monkey might have been the highlight of the show. And I did that. I just, you know me. Look, there's a duck. And you just trumped me on that.
I did.
Barbie.
Yeah, I'm going. I'm going to wear pink and everything, I think. Might as well embrace it. Take a picture in the box and all that stuff. Like all the people on social media.
Are you kidding me?
I know. I'm not going to take a picture in the box.
No, the pink.
But I'm going. I don't know if I have anything pink. I mean, I would look like a snowball, like one of the things that you get, like Hostess snowball in a pink shirt. I don't mind rocking a pink shirt. I'm just telling you.
I'm not going to read what you said on the air, but you're 100% correct, and I'll read it to Paul after we go to a break. Thank you, Emery. Appreciate Jack, Garrett, Ross, Paul, Catalina. Craig is back with us on Monday. We'll have more, and who knows what more, tomorrow as the saga continues with, of course, the Pac-12 and what is the number, what are the details, and who is remain committed or not. You can use my shirt. I think this is pink. This is like coral. I had somebody tell me that today. This, Hayden, who says in a couple of years Florida State or Clemson won't buy out?
I do.
This is 365 Sports, and good night.